Welcome, Midwest Paranormal presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight we have a guest, a really interesting guest. Dr. Scott Taylor will be joining us later tonight. He's the president of the Expanded Awareness Institute. He has 6 best-selling guided meditation CDs. We're going to be talking about near-death experiences, which we've had a lot of guests on before that subject, but we're going to talk a little bit more on another aspect called shared death experiences, a more rare experience in itself. Dr. Scott Taylor had this experience that changed his life and led him down this path of studying the afterlife, near-death experiences, and others shared death experiences. You'll find out what that means, a shared death experience. You know, it's basically, I'll just say, you watching somebody moving on to the other side and they say, want to go for a ride? I got to use the Art Bell reference there. But yeah, it is really interesting topic. I am so excited to have him. If we can, Mercury is in retrograde. I am having slow computer issues tonight, so hopefully I don't have to restart or anything. Keep your fingers crossed. And hopefully our guest is able to get his stuff working on his end. I haven't had a sound check with him. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we get through the show, Mercury in retrograde or not. And a lot of weird in the World Wide Web of weird to get to as well. And we will open up the phone lines later in the show for you to call in, ask questions of our guests, or share your own experiences. Have you had a near-death experience? Or once you hear about shared death experience, maybe you've had that too. Share that experience. It's rare. I'd love to hear it if you had. All right, guys, we got a lot to get to, so let's go ahead and get rolling on into it. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Tonight's guest, Dr. Scott Taylor, will be joining us after the World Wide Web of Weird, after our first commercial break, hopefully. Hope we don't have any issues with that. Joining me, as always, is my beautiful co-host, where things are a little bit cooler in California, is Jamie D. How you doing tonight, Jamie?
Doing well, thank you. Survived the heat wave, and I'm looking forward to... Cats are doing great. And I've had 2 NDEs myself, and I'm really interested in what he's going to be talking about tonight. It's something I don't hear people talking about ever.
I know.
So I'm really excited to hear this.
I know. Shared death experience, or SDE, is so fascinating. And I know some people, it's hard for them to take people's belief in the near-death experience, but open your minds, because I believe in this phenomenon. There's something that happens when somebody passes away in front of you. That even if you don't have a shared death experience, the energy, the feeling of it, the pain of it, it is a spiritual thing, though, that happens when you do witness the passing of someone. And what more of a time for somebody to have this kind of journey, a shared death experience, than that. So I'm really excited to have Dr. Scott Taylor. We got Rob Autry joining me. Let me add him to the stream here. Hopefully. It's running so slow tonight. I'm a little bit worried about the show. How you doing tonight, Rob?
Pretty good. My stuff's running slow, too.
Yeah, Mercury in retrograde. Mercury in retrograde.
Mercury, what a turd.
Mercury. All right. Yeah, I know. And let's see. Make sure. It's running so slow. I better just get this. Add this to stream now for the video because like I'm hitting it like 2 seconds ago and there it is. Wow, it is running really slow. All right, guys. We got a lot of weird to get to, so let's go ahead. And as soon as the camera wants to come up to me, that's how slow it's running. We're gonna go into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, we're going to talk about near-death experiences later on. Let's talk about the undead, right? I've been seeing this article go around a lot this last week or so about a female vampire, bones and all, were found with a sickle across her neck to stop her from rising from the dead. And you've heard these stories. I've been fascinated since I was a kid with the idea that people believed vampires were real at one time. And maybe they are real. I don't know. Anything that ever when I was a kid, I would eat up any story about vampires. And this would have been one I would definitely eat up as a kid with my imagination going wild. For those listening on the Paranormal Soup radio network on Talkstream's Paranormal Soup radio app, or Paranormal radio app, we are a webcast. We stream out live every Sunday night on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and you can hear us live on the Paranormal radio app. But I will narrate as best as possible. All right, let's see. Let me get this up here. It goes so slow, so slow. Like I'm hitting it, and it's like, there it is. Okay, let me move that out there. It is being really, really, really laggy tonight. I am a little nervous. All right, so I got this from Unexplained Mysteries. 17th century burial was recently unearthed by archaeologists at a cemetery in Poland. Vampires may be the stuff of fiction in today's world, but in centuries past, the threat of these undead night-dwelling horrors feast upon the living was taken quite seriously. There's some places in the world they still take it seriously. In the 17th century Poland, for example, such fears were so widespread that special measures were taken when interning the deceased to stop them from rising from their graves. The particular burial, which was unearthed by an excavation team headed up by Professor Darius Polinsky from Nicholas Copernicus University, saw the body of a woman interned with a sickle placed around her neck to ensure a swift dismemberment if she had come back to life. She's like, I'm back from the dead. Right? I don't know. It's pretty gruesome. The sickle was not laid flat, but placed on this neck in such a way that if the deceased had tried to get up, most likely the head would have been cut off or injured, Polinsky told the New York Post. The body was also been shackled to the grave by a way of padlock around her big toe. You know, this is a lot of work to bury somebody and go the extra step to make sure they don't come from back to dead. I've always been interested in this. I mean, yeah, people had definitely, superstitions and all that stuff back then, but, I mean, this is a lot of fear. Right there, you see a lot of extra measures to make sure this person wouldn't rise from the dead. It makes you wonder, were there instances of somebody rising from the dead? I mean, they took it seriously enough to believe they would do this. I don't know.
Like when they put the grates over the so if they come back as zombies, they can't get out.
Something scared humanity back in the past, that we buried our dead and feared our dead coming back. I mean, it goes way back, ancient cultures doing this kind of stuff, that they feared the dead coming back. Zombie apocalypse is coming. I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? All right, let's move on.
Over erupt.
All right. So we got this next one. I don't have the video for it. I wouldn't understand the language, but the motion's real in the video. I think Unexplained Mysteries had this, and Coast to Coast had the story. I got the original article here from Odisha College Girl, if I'm saying that right. Possessed by ghosts, narrates about a murder of a minor girl. An unbelievable incident at a college-going girl reportedly was heard narrating clearly about the murder of a minor girl after being possessed by a ghost. The incident took place at the Baraniga village under Kirara block in Balasore district of Odisha. The video of the girl speaking about the murder has gone viral. As per reports, on July 24th, a minor girl was burnt to death in the Baronigia village. Gina had been arrested and forwarded to court on the charge of setting her on fire to death. So somebody set this poor girl on fire. However, on Wednesday, a college student reportedly narrated about the murder of the said minor girl after being possessed by the ghost of the dead girl and said that she has come to meet her parents. The video has gone viral. It has been reported that the girl was possessed by the ghost for about 1.5 hours. So, this is a translation, so the grammar on here is not so great. But you watch the video of it, you can't understand what she's saying, but the emotion's real. Something's going on with that girl. Something's upset her deeply, and she's just going, la, 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 and supposedly she's telling how she was murdered. She's describing it. She's the ghost, narrating as her. And for an hour and a half. This is not a common thing, right? So, incidents has become the talk of the town, and is not acceptable for many people to believe in such incidents in that town. So it's not like it's common for that, and they're not liking it. And I wonder with our guest tonight, shared death experiences, this is very recent. The girl was just days before burnt to death, and then the ghost of her possesses her is what they call it. But what is some way this girl's connected, or this girl was just reaching out, and this girl's still in her transition period, and she found another young girl to connect with? I don't know. India's got a lot of this kind of stuff lately, I've noticed, the last few years.
Yeah, they get all the weird stuff over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they always seem to have something crazy.
They have a lot of those ghost videos with the shadows and that are totally fake, that the NVTV stuff puts up, a lot of fake stuff. But there's a lot of belief in the supernatural there, and skepticism too. Some of the older people are like, no, it's not real. But it seems like the younger generations of India are getting back into these kind of superstitions and beliefs. It's become popular in their social media. I mean, I think it was in India. It was the one guy who tried to swim that canal, and he ended up dying as it was a cursed canal or something like that. All right, let's see. Let's move on. Oh, let's talk about Artemis. Artemis 1 delayed again. When will the mission launch? Following 2 scrub launches due to various issues, the likelihood of a mission going ahead this month is looking bleak. In a run-up to August 29th, excitement surrounding the launch of Artemis 1, the first step in NASA's plans to return humans to the moon, has reached a fever pitch. On the day itself, however, a faulty sensor reading caused the launch to be scrubbed, and the date was pushed back to the next window of September 3rd. Unfortunately, the second attempt also failed due to a fuel leak, leaving big questions to mark over the launch and exactly when NASA would be putting the space launch system into space. As things stand, NASA will need to conduct repairs on the rocket to ensure the same thing doesn't happen again, and this is likely to take some time. The next available launch window is September 16th to October 4th. However, it's not clear exactly how long before the rocket will be ready for another attempt. There's also a potential conflict with SpaceX Crew 5 flight scheduled to take off on October 3rd. Because of this, the next launch window probably is October 17th, could be more likely possible. And now I've seen going around the articles about China finding a new mineral on the moon that has helium-3, which everybody talks could be a fuel. Ever seen the movie Moon? I think it's called Moon. About the guy alone on the moon mining, or he thinks he's alone. Helium-3. Is this the next war over the moon and its resources? Who has the right is going to be the question. Look at how quick we're trying to put it together. We're going to the moon. They've known for many, 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 many years that the moon was going to be a resource if we're for energy.
And I still want to know what that mile-long craft is that they want to put up there for.
The Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for mining. They're looking at. They're saying it now. They're going up there to the mine. They're making their intentions totally known. They want that helium-3 energy. It's all going to be about energy. It's going to all be. We're going to mine the crap out of it, and then next the moon's crashing into the earth or something. I don't know. I think we need to be very cautious. Yeah, I think we need, or the aliens are there and they're just going to bust a cap in all of us trying to go there. Yeah. That's I'm saying.
They're going to be like, oh no, hell no, you stay on your rock.
And we drill down and we're like, oh, we're hitting something solid. Then the aliens come, because I think it's like a Death Star. I don't know, but there's definitely issues. Oh darn it! Hold on a second, I got to reload.
And I don't think they're ever going to launch that to the moon. I think they're just collecting a bunch of money every launch attempt, and it's never. It's either hype. I can't see it being a distraction for anything, but I don't know why they would hype us up for this right now.
Yeah, it is money. They need money. We like money. I like money a lot. Yeah,
but I really don't think it's going.
I don't know. It has to. We got to get there.
Not
If
in this
anything,
one.
but yeah, not happening this. We're not going to Mars if we're not getting the moon. That's damn sure. I've been saying that for how long? We got to go to the moon, set up a base there, get that all settled before we even think about going
But
to Mars. And
it's
the moon would be
Elon.
yeah. Well, the moon has to be the launching platform, I believe, to go to Mars, not Earth.
Yeah, because then they also use like the gravitational pull or something as like boosts.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot less gravity to launch off the moon there to deal with than launching off of Earth. But it's getting all those resources up there and everything. And like I said, helium-3, that's where it's going to be at. That's energy is going to. We're already in an energy crisis. I mean, this is where it's going.
I'm just going to call it now. We're going to mess it all up.
Yeah. But maybe we already
can't be trusted.
If you believe the UFO circle, we already got ships that can go to the moon or Mars. We're already on Mars. I'm not trying to be an a-hole when I say that, because I believe it could be a possibility. I honestly do. I don't know if it is or not. But this next story is about possible mysterious aircraft photographed outside Area 51 hangar. Few places on Earth are notoriously secretive as Area 51, a remote facility in Nevada, blah, blah, blah. We know that. Potentially new evidence of such activities has been doing the rounds this week after a satellite photograph was posted online and distributed around various sites and message boards. It shows what appears to be an object, possibly an aircraft, sitting outside an isolated hangar, the purpose of which remains unclear at the southern end of the base. While at a glance the object is indistinct, that it's difficult to make out, many people, including defense military technology experts, have expressed interest in the image. There have been confirmed sightings of mystery aircrafts on the runways of Area 51 before, so it's certainly not outside the realms of possibilities that this could be one as well. It's an aircraft. It's quite a big one, potentially even wider than the runway it's sitting on. Yeah, that's what, if you see, look at the pictures of like the little black highlight there on the bottom left, and now I think the thing's that one. That's where somebody kind of like did a drawing around it. It does look like a stealth bomber or something, but bigger.
Yeah,
or maybe it's the Aurora.
E2 bomber for scale.
Yeah, trust me, this wouldn't be the UFO technology, and they're not going to just be parking that out in front of a hangar.
Hey, everybody, look what we got.
Yeah, it's secret. Don't tell anybody.
Don't tell nobody. Hey, I always say the best place to hide it is right in plain view.
Plain sight, right?
Yep.
I think it is a good possibility. I mean, you know, that we have a secret space force, that we are on the moon already. I mean, I do think that's a good possibility. I don't know about the Mars scene. There's a lot of people say we're already on Mars. I don't know about that. But those that say we're already on the moon, maybe. Or do we already have spaceships flying around out there, secret ships, and a fleet of them? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it always, you know, if we went to the moon in the 60s, I mean, we should be able to get there again by now. I think technology.
But we lost all the data and the technology.
Yeah.
We were, yeah. I'm up in the air. Did we go to the moon or not? You know, like, no. I want to believe we did. I think we did. I don't know. Yeah. But I get the arguments that we didn't. I get the arguments. I can't deny some of the points they make. Yeah.
I mean, you look at the technology in the rocket that they had back then, you know, if we did get to the moon, it was by the grace of God and a miracle.
How do we get past the Van Allen belt, you know? I don't know.
Thing was like made with an erector set and some rubber bands and some tinfoil tape.
Stanley Kubrick's filming it in a studio in Area 51.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Leaving you clues in The Shining. Go look up the conspiracy theory. But if you ever find the Stanley Kubrick video, I'm gonna run out of time. I better move on. But if you ever find the Stanley Kubrick video where he's like admitting that he helped fake the moon landing, there's a full video where you see that it's all a stage put on thing. He did this right before his death, which I find really weird. But he was being directed by somebody to say, okay, now you're gonna say that aliens were, you know, like you did it because aliens, you did this and blah blah blah. You faked it all. And he goes, okay, what do you want me to say here? You know, like. So but it's weird is why did Stanley Kubrick did that right before he died? And I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. We're running out of time here. Avi Loeb leaves $1.5 million effort to find alien tech on the ocean floor. You know, we might have alien tech. Maybe it's laying on our ocean floor. You know, it's out there. Probably. Good chances are, if you believe in ancient aliens. Earlier this year, it was revealed by the U.S. Space Command that a fast-moving fireball which exploded over Papua New Guinea 8 years ago actually originated from outside our solar system, predating the discovery of interstellar visitor Omninu in 2017. According to Harvard's Dr. Avi Loeb, Pieces of the object, which was named CNEOS 2014-0108, fell into the Pacific Ocean, are now lying on the seabed just waiting to be found. Here's where it gets weird, though. Loeb maintains that there's a chance that the object was extraterrestrial in origin and that the fragments contain alien technology. He's now funding a $1.5 million expedition to find and retrieve these fragments from the ocean floor. Loeb argues, I'm not going to say the whole name of the thing again, stands out because it was traveling anonymously fast compared to other similar objects and was a lot stronger than a typical iron meteorite. Actually finding the fragment as of an object that was only 2 feet in length before it broke up is going, what? It's only 2 feet in length. I mean, this is an alien probe then, right? I mean, that's not very big. Finding an object only around 2 feet in length before it broke up is going to be quite a challenge, however, leading some to question whether it's even possible at all. It's only 2 feet in length. That's my problem. Like, if it's an alien craft, it's a probe. I mean, what could you fit in 2 feet? That's very small.
Maybe the aliens are small.
And to find it on the ocean floor. Why don't they go check out that thing in the Baltic Sea phenomenon? You know what I'm talking about? It looks like the Millennium Falcon. Why don't you go check that out? That people have already looked at it. Go look at it. Go study that. What is that? You know, I don't know. I mean, I think it's cool that he's looking for this, but it's only 2 feet. You know, it's like, you know, it's a space turd. I don't know. A spaceship garbage, maybe. I don't know.
Space poopy.
Or it broke up. I mean, it could have been bigger. Maybe it just burned up, and that's all that's left. I mean, what are you going to get technology-wise out of that? I don't know. Good luck finding a 2-foot object in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. $1.5 million. I think, yeah. Okay. All right. Don't want to run out of time. What's the next one? Oh, yeah. Me and my boss at work were talking about this one. So there's a bunch of UFO sightings over Texas. September 2nd, I think, or 1st. I got the Coast to Coast article here. I have a short clip of one part of the video, but there's multiple people who videotaped this. Multiple people. Lots of videos out on this. And some that ended up in California at the same date, around the same time later on. Some of the similar things were in California. Multiple people in Texas were left mystified after spotting puzzling cluster of lights hovering in the night sky last week. According to local media report, the curious case occurred on Thursday evening in the city of Round Rock, when several residents noticed an eerie formation overhead. It was memorizing, honestly, said one witness, Emily White. I don't want to go on, I want to run out of time. You're not going to be able to do the full screen, it's saying. Okay. I showed this one in particular. They had a newscast and a guy saying, it's most likely, I'm a drone expert, and these are most likely drones. Okay. I've always said the important thing to a UFO video is, one, you know, multiple witnesses in the narrative happening in the video, and the exit. Those are clues. Is that you can't tell anymore if something's CGI. I'm going to tell you that right now. That people are good enough to make CGI. You will not be able to tell if it's CGI or not. So one is, are there narrative to the UFO video? What's going on? Are there multiple videos in different places? This has all that. And it has the exit. And the exit, to me, you tell me, Rob, you're familiar with drones. Is this drones? Go ahead and play this footage very quick. This is the exit. I don't think I included the audio on this one or not, but good. Boom, gone. That drone, you're muted, Rob. You're still muted.
I've never seen a drone that fast.
Nope. But they put a drone expert on Fox News and showed this video clip, but he never says anything about that video. Which video did you show that drone expert? Maybe you should have showed him this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
the reaction.
I've never seen one go that fast.
No. There's no drones that I know of that are that fast.
I'll admit, if I saw this video on its own separately, I'd go, oh, it's CGI fake crap.
Yeah.
But the reason it isn't is because that same exact video is videotaped by multiple people.
Nice.
And there's a lot of videos out there on this. So I'm wondering how much more is going to come about it, or anybody's going to find anything. To say that was a drone, after seeing that, if the guy saw, I don't think that drone expert saw this video. He'd have to say, no way. Because that thing, gone.
Yeah.
All right, we got one more story. We're going to run out of time. Navy, we've been covering the ongoing saga of the disclosure movement, which is a bunch of crap. U.S. Navy, all unreleased UFO videos are classified. I wish I had that sound clip of Jack Nicholson going, you don't need to know the truth. You can't handle the truth. You know, because that's what they're doing. You know, they did release some stuff really good. The Tic Tac videos, all that stuff, really, really great. Incredible evidence. Multiple. Now some of the pilots have come out, witnesses it. I don't think they intended that. I don't think they intended that for the disclosure. I think they're trying to clean things up now. And what they showed us at the hearings was a bunch of crap videos. They got some good stuff, like I said before, and I've said repeatedly, they got some really good footage. Was it the U.S. Roosevelt where they had 100 witnesses and plenty of sensor data and big? These things are only a couple hundred feet up, huge orange fireballs that were reported. Yeah, and that's all been videotaped and sensor logs and all kinds of stuff. It's classified. So much for disclosure. So much for disclosure. Oh, it's going to harm our intelligence sources and our methods and our blah, 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 blah. Screw you. You know what? I have a need to know. We need to know if we're under a threat here, because honestly, we got a lot of bad stuff going on in the world. Maybe they don't want to add to it, but I think we all should know if we have an alien threat to this planet. People are going to lose their minds. Maybe, I don't know, but yeah, this whole disclosure movement, like I said, is a bunch of crap, and this tells you it's right here how much it is. They have only released the crappiest of videos at that hearing. Like I said, they got a lot better stuff than this, than what they showed us. Because one could have been a balloon in the sky that the jet goes right by. Who knows? And that was like crap. And then they showed the explainable video of the triangle night vision, which is explainable by the fact that it's just the iris of the night vision. That's not a triangle UFO, and it's probably just a drone. Because there are definitely military spy drones on our military that are happening. I believe that's part of what's going on. But there are UFOs, real alien probably stuff spying on it, and the good stuff that they cannot explain. They're never going to show us that, guys. They're really not. I don't think they ever wanted the Tic Tac video to come out. I think there's people on the inside. There's certain people that did, and they helped make that happen, and they're done. They're fired, gone, or locked away in some black site. I don't know. But, so much for the disclosure. But that's it for the World Wide Web of Weird. Our guest is Dr. Scott Taylor. He's president of the Expanded Awareness Institute. We're going to talk about near-death experiences, but we're really going to get into tonight is Dr. Scott Taylor's shared death experience. You might not be familiar with what that is, but it's incredible, rare experience, similar to NDEs. We'll get into all that when we come back from this commercial break. And later on in the show, we will open up the phone lines. If you've had a near-death experience, Jamie, I want you to talk tonight a little bit about yours with our guest and get his insight on it, please. Because you've had, what you said, 2. I would love to, some of the audience probably hasn't heard all your experience with that, and I'd be incredible for you to share tonight. But also for our audience, if you've had a near-death experience, later on we open up the phone lines, call on the show and share. This is how we all compare notes here. We're all trying to figure out what the reality really is. And I think near-death experiences, shared death experiences are little insights to beyond the veil. That there's so much more to this incredible world and life that we live in. All right, guys, we'll be right back after a short commercial break.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
encounters of the second kind, physical evidence of a UFO. Close encounters of the third kind, contact. From Steven Spielberg, the director of Jaws, comes one of the most ambitious and unusual films ever made. And what you will see has never been seen before. It's a cosmic mystery crossing what many scientists believe will be the next threshold of human experience. It is called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It begins in an Indiana town and leads to one inescapable conclusion. We are not alone. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Certificate A. Now showing at the Odeon, Leicester Square.
The international chart-topping Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest has been described as terrifyingly real, a must-read, shocking and chilling brilliance, genuinely worrying, utterly frightening. Don't read before bed. Described as one of the spookiest writers out there, best-selling author G.L. Davies presents Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest, the true paranormal account that is shocking the world. Dare you enter? Dare you read? Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, and wherever books are sold. Pray you never have to live there.
This is the sound of a space clock aboard a U.S. satellite 180 miles above the Earth. No one winds up this timepiece. It's powered by a tiny battery, a battery that delivers power for years without replacement. Now the same type of battery, the Duracell battery, can bring new reliability and long life to your battery-operated equipment. Radios, cameras, toys, all run far longer. Duracell batteries, the long-distance power cells, outlast any ordinary battery. The same type of battery that keeps space clocks running for years can bring long life to anything powered by batteries. Dura, as in durable. Cell, as in power cell. The Duracell battery, made by Mallory.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Switch to DCS ranging.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe, 5 by 5.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is Dr. Scott Taylor. He's president of the Expanded Awareness Institute. The EAI helps people interested in near-death and shared-death experiences explore what the experiences means to them and to our culture as a whole. Scott's gift is the ability to make those explorations of the non-physical universe accessible to those who are curious. Scott is also the author and voice of 6 best-selling CDs of guided meditations on near-death experiences in his Into the Light series. He's a spiritual teacher, speaker, and researcher on near-death experiences. Like I said, we're going to talk about as well near-death experiences, but shared-death experiences, which is a more rare phenomenon than near-death, which is rare in itself, and it's an incredible experience. I've heard a few others talk about, but not many, and I'm really interested to hear Dr. Scott Taylor's experience, his own personal experience that led him into this journey. It's a very powerful experience. I can't wait to hear it. I want to hear your experiences later in the show. I know some of you, like Jamie tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about her experiences, had near-death experiences. I want to hear yours tonight. later on, call into the show after our next commercial break. We'll open up the phone lines. You call in and share, and get Scott's insight into it. This guy's been researching this for a while now. And I love comparing notes between people's NDEs. They can be different, but there's commonalities. We're going to get into all that. Let's go ahead and get to our guest. All right, things are moving slow here. Let's see how long it takes to add Mercury's in retrograde here. I'm adding Dr. Scott Taylor, and everything's running slow. How you doing? Do you want to go by Scott, Dr. Taylor? How do you want to go?
Please, Scott. And yes, Mercury's in retrograde. I completely appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. I saw Jamie here posted it on Facebook. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's great. Right before the show, I saw it. Like, oh, we're in trouble. My computer's running slow. I'm like, but you're here. You sound and look great. You had worries about using StreamYards. Hopefully, knock on wood, it works for you tonight. No problems.
It's working great. Thank you, Jason. I've been really looking forward to chatting with you tonight.
Me too, because I've had guests on for near-death experiences several times. I always say it's one of my favorite topics. I have a lot of favorite topics in paranormal, but the afterlife itself is probably up there at the top of my interest. All my favorite movies as a kid were all movies that had to do with the afterlife. Beetlejuice, Albert Brooks's Defending Your Life.
I love Defending Your Life. It has nothing to do with the reality and how it works, but
it's hilarious.
It's a remarkable film. It's heartfelt, and you should watch it with your significant other because it's full of wonder and love and nothing to do with
It's a good movie. It's a good movie. I love Albert Brooks for one, but it's just a really good movie. We'll talk later about what maybe is similar and what it's not like that at all. But What Dreams May Come, like all these movies, I didn't think about it for many years that all my favorite movies have something to do with the afterlife. Yeah, High spirits, ghosts and stuff, yeah, but it still had to do with the afterlife, like all these things, so I've had a fascination about this. And yours is a rare experience. I don't know how you want to begin this. I would, I guess, start with what we were before this experience. What was your background? Who were you? And what was your belief system before you experienced this?
Who was I? I grew up in southern Minnesota, small town of Mankato, and my spiritual training was of the mainline Presbyterian Church. I had been raised in a retail family and, was in the department store business. So I was, pretty much a normal kind of guy and really had no particular spiritual bent until I had my shared death experience.
And so when this happened, what was the year that you had this experience?
This is 1981, the summer of 1981.
Now, a lot of the audience is probably like, shared death experience. What is that? I don't know if you want to tell them what it is or tell them your experience, and they'll get the idea of what it is. Because I mean, some people are like, everybody's heard NDEs, but not many people have heard shared death experience before.
Yeah. So the quick definition is that in a shared death experience, in a near-death experience, your physical body is so traumatized that it dies. You leave your physical body, you come back again, and you return. Somehow they resuscitate your body and you return. But in a shared death experience, there's nothing has happened to you. You could be bedside with somebody who's making their transition. And when they leave their body for the last time, they're invited to go with that person. And that's what happened to me, is that I was invited to participate in the final transition. And so there's nothing that happens to your physical body. You're just there, and you get a chance to be with somebody who's actually making their transition.
Now, I've heard, people say at, the time of somebody's death that they're loved and they're there. People have seen things, seen the spirit of somebody else coming into the room and taking them away. This is more than that, right? This is more than that.
Yeah. Not only do they get to see it, but you leave your physical body, your consciousness leaves your physical body, and you go with the person making their transition, and you encounter the escort, you go through the tunnel, you get to participate in the reunion with all the dead relatives, meet divine beings and have a past life review. All those common elements that are in near-death experiences, you can participate also.
Wow.
But you're physically fine.
May
So
I ask,
yeah,
is
go,
it
Jamie.
is it similar to astro projecting along with them?
Yeah, I guess you could say it like that. That our consciousness, our non-physical body, gets to be with the person who's making their transition. Yeah, I think that's
It's
a fair description.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. A great question, Jamie. So let's talk about this experience. I want you to tell people what happened to you that led you down this road of. I mean, because I know you've worked with the Monroe Institute. You're president of Expanded Awareness, and so obviously after this, it changed your life. You've dedicated
did.
yourself to this journey and learning more about this. So I want people to hear this powerful experience.
Okay. So, like I said, this happened in 1981. I was in love with a woman. Her name was Mary Frances Randall, and she and her son Nolan, who had just turned 7, were out sailing on Lake Washington, which is in southern Minnesota, not pretty close to Mankato. And they'd been out doing that during the day. And when they were coming home, they were involved in a horrific car accident, and Mary Fran was killed instantly. And Nolan, who had just turned 7, had this he had a mortal head wound, and they were lucky in that they were immediately transported to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. So, they had some of the best health care that was available in the world, but, it wasn't enough. So what happened was that they were, transported to St. Mary's Hospital, and Mary Fran, to back up just a hair, Mary Fran was one of 9 children, and Nolan was the eldest grandchild in the family. So there was, lots of emotional affection for the both of them. And because it took 6 days for Nolan to make his transition, there was plenty of time for the relatives from all over the country to come and hold vigil for Nolan as he was struggling to survive. And because there were so many of us, because think of it. There's brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and grandparents and friends, and and that was just their side of the family.
Yeah.
And then there's my side of the family. There's a raft of us that was hanging out in this waiting room, just trying to be with Nolan as he's struggling to survive. So what we did was we divvied up the time with Nolan, because it was a small room, and you can't all be in there at the same time. So there's 40 or 50 of us. So what happened was that we took different shifts, and I happened to have the shift from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. the morning of the 6th day. And we went in, and one of the things we know about people who've had, head injuries or who are in coma is that hearing is the last sense to go. And so we had been counseled by the staff of Mayo to, even though Nolan was in a coma and had never, awoken, but we were counseled to talk to him. And so we came in at 3 a.m, and we we said our best. We told him stories, we read him books, we talked about what all these crazy cousins were doing. And in fact, that night it was actually pretty funny. We'd been in this room for so long, this waiting room, that the the cousins had gone out into the Mayo system and robbed all of the cushions that were on these couches throughout the Mayo Clinic and put them on the floor so we had a place to sleep. Anyway, so we're telling Nolan these stories about his uncles and his aunts doing this raiding thing, and it was it was humorous, but at the same time, what we were trying to do is to stay connected to him so that he knew that
he's
we
not
were
alone.
there and that we loved him.
Yeah.
And then about 4:45 in the morning, Janny, who was Mary Fran's oldest sister, Janny and I were there, and she went to the end of the bed and she took a look at his chart, and then she looked around at the various monitors that were surrounding him, and she just shook her head and she held her hand out to me and said, "Scott, we need to say goodbye." And so we grabbed a couple of chairs and we sat next to Nolan's head, and we told him how much we loved him, and that how proud we were of him, and that he was such a brave boy, that he had struggled really hard to stay with us here in the physical world. But if there came a time when his mother, remembering Mary Fran, had died 6 days before, if there came a time when Mary Fran came to collect him, that he should go with his mother, and that would be okay, and that we would always respect that choice, because he had been such a strong and valiant warrior for his own life.
Yeah.
So we told him that, and we reaffirmed our affection and love for him. And then it's 6 o'clock in the morning, and the next shift came in. And it wasn't 45 minutes later that we were awakened by the nurse on the floor, and she said to us that it was time, that it was clear now that he was in his downward slope and that we should be bedside. So we all filed into this little hospital room with Nolan in this bed and all of these monitors that are up surrounding him. And as it turned out, I was one of the last people into the room, and it was already 4 or 5 deep around the bed. And I went, well, that doesn't make sense to me. So I just wound up sitting on the windowsill next to Mary Fran's youngest brother, Willie, and we just waited. And you kind of get into a meditative state as you sit there and watch the heart monitor, and it gets slower and slower and slower, and finally it flatlines. And when it flatlined and there's that ominous tone that comes out, what I witnessed was Mary Fran coming across the veil and scooping her son out of his physical body. And somehow I was able to participate in this joyous reunion, and it was exquisite, as you could only imagine, between a mother and child. And they had this moment together, and somehow I was able to share in that. And then, to my surprise, the two of them turned to me, came over and embraced me, and then the three of us left and went to the light together. And when I entered into the light, it was beyond description. It was beyond anything that I could tell you, Jason. It was this place of profound love and compassion. And it was a place where you are accepted unconditionally. And all of a sudden, there we are, the three of us, and we get a chance to talk with one another. And we got a chance to affirm our affection for one another. We had a chance um, to be with one another, and we had a chance to say our goodbyes in a more heartfelt, appropriate way. And then it was this wordless communication that happened as the three of us, bonded together, and then we were part of the whole of the universe, which was loving us at the same time. And then it felt complete. And at that point, the two of them turned and went further into the light, and I had a chance then to come back to my physical body and be once again in the room with the other grieving relatives. So that's part A of my story, Jason. You got any questions for this part? Because there's a part B that comes up.
Yeah. Well, I want to get to the part B, but yeah, I do. I could tell this. 1981. This still resonates with you. So much.
Absolutely.
I can hear your voice trembling. It's making me tear up. As a father, I understand he might not have been your biological son, but my biological father didn't give a damn about me. My stepdad is my dad.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what blood is. It's relationships. Like, I'm getting teary eyed just thinking about it, because as a father, I could. It doesn't mean, when you are part of a child's life, and to see that life not get to continue it's heartbreaking.
Well, there's a subtext to this story in that Mary Fran was a single mother. The biological father had disavowed any knowledge of this kid. He didn't want anything to do with them. He didn't want to participate in the life. He just disappeared from the scene. So Mary Fran made a very conscious decision to not tell her son who the biological father was. And being 7 years old, Nolan, wanted to be like the other kids in his school. He wanted to have a dad.
I know that feeling really well.
Yeah, and he didn't know who his dad was, and mom wouldn't tell him. And then I show up onto the scene, and we date, and we start to have a relationship, and he starts to look at me like I'm a father figure, and I've always been single to that point, and I went, this is a great kid. And so we bonded, and so it doesn't surprise me that there was real affection that was expressed between Nolan and I when we were in the light together.
Now, as this began, you're sitting in the waiting room with all these people.
Yeah.
When you say she came in and scooped him up, what were you seeing? Was this because I understand the concept of split consciousness. You can see things kind of you can have a whole mental experience while you're physically somewhere else. But when it started, did you actually physically see her spirit enter the room?
That's a really good question. And the answer is sort of. Mm-hmm. And we should talk about this later, but a clear light experience. And what happens with that kind of experience is that there is an energetic signature. Like I recognized Mary Fran from her energy, and did I see her like I knew her when she was in their physical life? No. But did I recognize who she was because of the energy that was in the room, and because of the energy of Nolan as as he had lifted out of his body? Absolutely. I knew
You knew the
exactly
energy.
who was in the room and what was transpiring.
Wow. And so while this is happening, you're experiencing this. I
Yep.
mean, you had all these other people. Did anybody notice what was happening with you?
Yes, actually.
This is probably
You're
part B.
no,
I'm
actually,
getting
it's part
into.
C, but
Oh, okay. So I'm
um,
skipping ahead. I'll let you
you're
tell the story how you need to tell it. I'm sorry.
no,
It's just
it's
so many
fine.
questions.
Let's go to part B real quick.
Okay. Yeah.
So what happened was I was with Mary Fran and Nolan, but I was also fully conscious in my physical body. And now I didn't have a word for it then. I didn't even have a concept for it then. It was bilocation. I
Right.
was fully present with Mary Fran and Nolan in the light, and I was fully present in my physical body sitting on the windowsill next to Willie. And
You're
I
aware
know,
of two state. I want to clarify this. So you're aware of your physical self there, sitting there. You feel yourself sitting there. You feel all the people around you, but you're also aware of this other physical state in another realm.
yeah, and it's
Correct?
more than aware. It's I'm there,
You're there.
and I'm fully present in the room
That's makes your
the
head
other.
hurt.
And I know this because there my body is feeling what it's like to be in the non-physical world, this world of joy and ecstasy and love, and it is like it's trying to burst outside of me. It's like it's
Yeah.
and if somebody had looked at me, they would have seen this expression on my face that would have been joyous. And
Yeah.
I knew that that was totally inappropriate for the room.
Right.
And so what I did was I covered my face with my hands so that nobody could see me. And I just sat there in this state in the room and with Mary Fran and Nolan until both parts of me reunited back in the hospital room, and I could combine. And once I regained my composure, I could take my hands down and then, hug the other people in the room and be fully present with all the other grieving relatives who had just, they lost Mary Fran 6 days ago, and they just lost Nolan moments
Yeah.
ago. And I mean, it was a tear the heart out of you kind of scene. But I was then able to be with them in that space. So I don't normally tell this, but as long as you asked,
Yeah.
part C of the story is you have to flash forward about 15 years, and I'm doing my doctoral research for my dissertation at the University of St. Thomas in St. Paul. And I'm writing about near-death experiences. And I had put the call out to everybody that I knew that said, I really want to talk to somebody who's had one of these. And
Right.
it turns out that Mary Fran's sister has had one. And so,
Really?
yeah. And so I called her up and said, I'd love to interview you about that. So we did. We got together, and the protocol when you do one of these interviews is you sit down, you turn on the tape recorder, and you talk about the day and the time and the sister's name. She has to remain anonymous because I promised her that. But she tells the story of her experience, and her experience was pretty unique in that she had been prescribed some drugs and happened to be visiting her parents and took the drugs for the first time and laid down for a nap, and it turns out she had an adverse reaction to those drugs.
Oh, yeah.
And as a result, um, um, she went into some kind of arrest there on the bed, left her physical body, and wound up in this world of gray where she's kind of floating in this world of gray. And out of the gray came her sister, Mary Fran. And Mary Fran, I wish you'd known her, because she had this way about her. Like, she put her hands on her hips and she just said, "You've got to go back, and go back now." And and the sister said, looked at her and went,
Yeah.
"Well, really nice to see you too, Mary Fran."
Right.
And Mary Fran looked at her and went, "No, I'm not kidding. You've got to go back, and go back now." And she said it so loud that it startled her, the sister. And the next thing that she knows, she's on the floor, and she opens her eyes. And at that very moment, there is an EMT that's standing above her, and he's turning away, and he's addressing his partner and saying, "I've done everything I could.
Oh, wow.
We've lost her." And of course, the guy who's standing there, he looks down, sees her eyes are open. He went, "No!" And they grab her, they take her to the hospital, and they do
she was
whatever
dead at
magic
some
that
point.
needs to happen. But she comes back, and she's with us today. I mean, it was a successful outcome. So that's the story that she tells me. And at the end of it, I turn off the tape recorder and I start packing my stuff up. And then I have this thought, and it's like, when Nolan made his transition at St. Mary's Hospital in Rochester, something really unusual happened to me. And I wonder if anything happened to you. And she looks at me, and her eyes are as big as saucers.
Oh.
And she goes, and taking that for a yes, I turn the tape recorder back on again. And I say, "Okay, I tell you what, you tell me your story first, and then I'll tell you my story." This is what she said, Jason.
Yeah.
She said, "I was standing bedside. I was across the room from you because I could see you sitting on the windowsill with Willie. And when Nolan flatlined, what I witnessed was Mary Fran coming across the veil, scooping Nolan up out of his physical body. They had this incredible reunion in which I was able to participate. And then the two of them turned to me, embraced me, and the three of us went to the light." It was exactly the same story. She used the same language that I did, and she knew nothing about what had happened to me. And in that instant, if I ever thought that this was, grief related, or it was
because that's what the skeptics are going to say about this.
Yeah, they're going to.
You're just in such extreme grief, and it's like you don't understand.
And then to have it absolutely verified by another person in the room, the only difference between our stories is I experienced the three of us going to the light. I didn't see a fourth person, which would have been the sister. I now believe that it was two separate events, just like I could bilocate.
Time is meaningless?
Time is meaningless. They could bilocate, and, they took me, they took her, and, the same thing happened. That they had a chance to say their goodbyes, say how much they cared for each other and loved each other, and then, so it was, it's one of the few, it's a shared death experience, meaning I wasn't traumatized in any way. Neither was the sister. And it was absolutely verified, almost word for word, for what had happened between the two of us. So it was a remarkable confirmation of what each of us experienced.
That's incredible. I mean, it's rare to hear of shared death experience, but they have two people at the same death experience the same thing.
Yep.
It's just that's incredible. It's just incredible. I mean, what no matter the tragedy of it all, it's a gift. And
It
most
is a
people don't get
gift,
to say
and
goodbye that way.
and it's a I I tell people how hard a lesson this has been for me because um, in the moment of my greatest grief, I was in my greatest joy. And so whenever I think about this scene, both those emotions are just interwoven with each other, and it and they will forever be intertwined that way. I can't pull them apart because, clearly I was in great grief after having that happen, and to experience the kind of love and joy that came with the reunion and with being part of this non-physical world where we go afterwards that is just
Right.
so loving and gracious. um I Yeah, it was a wonderful gift that came at a tremendous cost.
When you were there, did you have any kind of choice of staying or coming back, or did you have to come back?
Good question. Yeah, you see that all the time in near-death
Right.
experiences where people have this choice. I didn't have There wasn't any choice, and I already know, having done 35 years worth of research on this. Um, there's there I could not have stayed. I mean,
Okay.
I had a physical body that was healthy. I had things to do, and if it's not my time, it is not my time. I
Yeah.
mean,
Did you
my guides
did
would.
you want to stay? That's my question when you're there.
It wasn't an option. No, it wasn't. It wasn't an option. The option was I had a chance to um, express what we meant to each other and to say our goodbyes, and that was it. Um, yeah, there wasn't any kind of you could go with them. It just wasn't part of the solution
Right.
set. Yeah,
Yeah.
good
How,
question.
how long? How long was it before you? I mean, like, When did you? Ever? I mean, you lived with this. You knew it happened to you. But how long did it take you before you actually wanted to start talking to people about it? I mean,
About 15 years.
was
Yeah.
was her sister the first one you told in that session when you were interviewing her, or had you told
Um,
anybody?
no, well, I don't remember. Um, it was a long time. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it was, and principally it's because we now know that people who've had near death experiences, when they talk about their experience for the first time, safety and disclosure is a really big deal.
Right.
So they're going to express it to somebody that they really trust, and the reaction that comes from that person forever defines how they relate to their near death experience.
Wow. Yeah, I never
And
thought about it that way.
yeah, and for me, um, my memory was that I was dating somebody else at the time, and I talked about it, and they were safe, and said, "Well, wow, this is kind of cool, actually."
They believe you. You
They absolutely believe me.
Yeah. I've had guests on the show that had near death experiences, more than one. I think at least one that I can try to remember who they had woken up and they wanted to tell everybody right away in the
Oh yeah,
hospital. And of course, they were met with instant your skepticism and all that.
yeah, and
So but
given drugs, and then wound up in the psych ward. Yeah, I mean,
right. Uh,
it can go bad for people who disclose uh, not in a
well,
safe way.
well, in that situation, as somebody like you in a shared death experience, you're sitting around all these other family members. experience it and they don't know that you're going through it, I got to believe there are probably a lot more people who have experienced this, that it's
Yeah.
more common than we think, but they'll never tell a soul because that's out of their realm of experience, and they don't want to make family members angry by saying something that they might be criticized or think is fanciful, or
Or
there's a lot of
fact,
reasons why people would keep it in.
yeah, or jealousy. And it's like, why you and not me?
Right,
I love
you,
him just as
right.
much.
That's true.
I
I
love
didn't.
Dad as much as you loved him. I mean, so yeah. And
Now, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
we now know a lot more about shared death experiences than we did before. I mean, this term is like 5 years old, so it's relatively new. It was first coined by the guy who coined the term near-death experience, Raymond Moody.
Or Moody. Yep, that's right.
He wrote the first common book about it, and in February of this year of 22, William Peters came out with a book called At Heaven's Door, and he had done about 800 interviews of people who had shared death experiences.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's a big study. And interestingly, it turns out that there are some commonalities in there. First off, in order to have a shared death experience, there has to be a heart connection between the person who is making the transition and me. Well, let's
Right.
put it this way.
Or
So it was like Mary, Fran, and Nolan. We had a heart connection, so that was good. And then the recipient, me, had to be in a receptive state, and that was true because I've been waiting, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes. And what's there to do in a room when somebody's making their
Right.
transition? You're just kind of watching the heart monitor, and everybody's quiet and praying or, doing whatever they need to do.
And you're in a
so
little mental shock too of the
yeah, and so
situation.
you're taking a little bit of a break, and it's nice and calm and quiet. And so, was I in a meditative state? Probably. And then there was the invitation. And what we now know is that the person who's making the transition, meaning Nolan
Yeah.
and his mother, they reached across and made an invitation to me to come with them. It doesn't go the other way.
Right.
I can think of all that I want that I'd like to go with them, but there needs to be an invitation from the person who's making their final transition
Right.
back to somebody still in the physical in order for it to happen. And in my case, I had two. I had both Mary Fran and Nolan that had invited me to share in Nolan's transition. So it was effective that way. And now what we know even more is that you can arrange to do this ahead of time. How do you like that?
You want to take a ride, right? As Arbella would say.
Yeah, you want to take a
right?
ride? Yeah. So what that means is that, say, my wife Ann and me, we happen to meet on the corner of 11th and LaSalle in downtown Minneapolis, and so we have arranged it that when say I go first and I'm making my transition, and when I'm going through my life review, when I get to that part where I'm at the corner of 11th and LaSalle and I'm meeting Ann, that's my clue to reach back into the physical world and pull Ann with me so she can experience my transition with me. And
the first time you meet.
Yep. So that happened to be ours because it was a memorable moment. I mean, you can pick anything between between two people, and it's good. And that's just a nice reminder that, yep, we've agreed on this. Let's go make it happen.
Remember the movie with Christopher Walken, Brainstorm?
Oh yeah.
Did you ever see that? That's what I've been thinking about. That's the other movie that I was totally fascinated with as a kid. People haven't seen it. It's almost like they're creating a device to share a shared death experience in it. It's by accident because in the movie, they invent a device that's able to scan people, record people's memories, basically, and then play it back for somebody else. And one of the scientists ends up having a cardiac arrest with the headset on, and it records her death. And of course, leads up to Christopher Walken eventually taking that ride, taking that journey. And it's a beautiful for 1980. I think it was 1980s, right? Special effects, and there's all these like balls of light and all these memories floating by him, and like he enters those memories. It was just a beautiful movie. I think that was what's her name? Who was the actress? Was one of her? It was her last movie. That's right.
It was her last movie. Yep.
I can't think of her name. But it's a great movie for anybody. Brainstorm.
And it's really accurate in terms of I've had so many people. I've done hundreds of interviews with near-death experiencers, and many of them will talk about that exactly that way, that they're in this space and there's these balls of light that are just floating in the space, and all you have to do is put your attention on one of those balls of light and you are instantly in.
And that's that movie.
Scene.
That's that scene at the end. It's incredible. And he's biolocating because he's talking to her while he's experiencing this, I highly recommend it. I should one day make a Paranormal Soup video on Jason's favorite afterlife, near death, spiritual afterlife movies. Dreams That Come, Brainstorm. Defending Your Life. All these things like I said, it took me a long time to realize how much I must be interested in this topic because all my favorite movies are in some realm in a way connected to that. And I've just been fascinated by people's experiences. I always love having guests on to talk about near-death experiences, but the shared death experience, I mean, what's so incredible to me about it is the fact that you are alive. There's nothing physically wrong with you, yet you can still go to that state. So this had to leave it in your mind because I know a lot of near-death experiencers after it, it's like they felt that incredibleness of that state, of God or the afterlife or that love, I know that feeling from not a near-death experience, but it's another long story. But I know that feeling, what I call God or the Force, because I like Star Wars. It's unconditional love, no matter anything you ever done, doesn't matter. We love you.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
There's nothing to be ever scared of. I always have your back. I am there. Whatever it is, it's there. It's always there. You're never alone. That's a feeling you know instantly. And I get that from people that have near-death experiences, and it's like they want that again. They want to feel that again. There's almost this need to do it. So you had to have that, right? I mean, after experiencing it.
And I have to tell you that we now know that with near-death experiencers that there is this in many people, there's this drive for curiosity. It's like they have to know more. Well, in my case, what I knew was that if I had been in that space once, I could do it again. Right. I was absolutely convinced that if I was there once, I could go there again, and I could reconnect with Mary Fran, reconnect with Nolan, and so I started out on a search, and in the first couple of years, I went to all these ancient spiritual sites on the planet. I went to Stonehenge and to the Oracle of Delphi and the Sphinx and Machu Picchu. And
my bucket list here, man.
Right.
Places I want to visit if I could.
And I went to more cathedrals than you could shake a stick at. And the whole point of this was that maybe there was some sort of spiritual juju, some sort of juice that would help me if I was in a meditative state, propel me back to that space where Mary Fran and Nolan were. Well, the answer was no. It didn't happen. It was a chance for me to have wonderful vacations, but that never happened. And so then I said, well, really, I'm going to take a more active role, and I'm going to, participate in some sort of other transition. So I started to meditate, and, I started with TM, And then I studied with shamans in both North and South America. I studied with the Emoto religion in Japan, just trying to find a way again to get back there. And, it sort of worked, kind of, sort of. And then I said,
There's a lot of
well,
ancient traditions that talk about, I mean, Tibetan Buddhism and other meditative states that will take you to Bardo or take you to
oh,
the
yeah,
afterlife.
hint
Yeah,
thing.
I mean,
Yeah, and the closest I got was with shamanism in the upper and lower worlds, but I'm not of that tradition, and it it just didn't work as well for me as
right.
I would have liked. Um, so I went to seminary, thought maybe it was a head thing. No, that wasn't it. Where I found it was at the Monroe Institute. Um, have you had anybody on here from there before?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I can't.
so
I know I have. I know I have. I can't think of who at the moment, but I know I have. Yes.
Okay, so for your listeners, the Monroe Institute teaches a very specific form of meditation that uses binaural beat audio technology that allows people to enter into and hold specific states of consciousness. And they are very good at setting up these vibratory states. And one of them um, is a state they call Focus 21, which is the bridge state. It's the state where people who are non-physical can lower their vibrations. We can raise our vibrations and meet. And I had a chance to meet Mary Fran and set up a relationship, and I learned how to do it. And because it was so profoundly moving for me, I became a trainer for
Right.
them for 35 years. And
Wow.
then for 2 years, I was their executive director. All great fun. And, but one of the lovely things about what they do in their meditation training is, you use these binaural beats, but that's only training wheels. Once you enter into these states and you know what it feels like, you don't have to use the headphones anymore. You can throw them away. And all you have to do is remember what it feels
Get your
like.
mind in that way.
And you're there. It's like any other skill that we have. It's brain training. How do you hit a golf ball well? How do you hit a baseball well?
Right.
It's the same principles that, once you know how to do it, then you can just go back there again. So that was my entry into this world. And it was profound from the sense that when people have near death experiences, they are thrust into this non physical world, and it's a surprise.
Right.
It's sudden. You're now into this space, and you don't know what's going on, and all of a sudden, I mean, you're flooded with these emotions, and you see, your dead grandma, and I mean, it's overwhelming, and the experience happens to you, as opposed to learning how to enter into that state and then
Willingly.
know how to navigate the non-physical universe. And so, it's a co-creative process then, and that makes all the difference in the world. So that's the cool thing, is that we now know how to go to that space, and what does it take to enter into communication and move around, and what's the role of imagery and intention and yada yada.
Another favorite movie of mine was Flatliners, where they actually tried to where they kill themselves to do it. And
Yeah.
Kiefer Sutherland.
I don't
good
recommend
movie.
that plan.
Don't do
like,
that. I
don't
think
do
your
that.
plan's
That
much
is
better. Maybe they
really
needed
a bad
that.
really a bad idea.
But it's so fascinating. When you, we're going to go to commercial break here in a couple minutes, but when you get yourself the binaural beats, when you did that, when you first did it and
Yep.
entered that state, trying to enter it, and you enter it, I mean, was it just as emotionally feeling real as that original time?
Yes, it was extremely emotional. There's a connection. Was it like the first time? No. only because that grief component wasn't there.
Right.
I was
Got that.
doing this as a extension of my love, and not an extension of my love and my grief. So it felt different,
Yeah.
but it doesn't
Right.
make it any less impactful.
But it was just as real. Just
Oh
just
yeah,
as yeah. Right.
yeah.
Now, like I said, we're going to commercial break here in a minute or two. But other question I have is like, so now that you can enter this state, it'd be you know what's the answer to the universe kind of thing. Like, I mean, you could ask them, you think they'd be able to give you a lot of information, or build, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you get there and it's like, do you ask the big questions or do you I mean, what do you talk about? Like, what do
Actually,
you?
it's almost the reverse, Jason. It's more
Mhm.
like you experience the big questions. It's like all of a sudden you realize that y- you it the non-physical universe doesn't work like the physical universe. With
Right.
each universe runs by different rules. So in the physical universe, it's run by the terms either or. It's like, Jason, you are you, and I am me. So it's either you or me. But in the non physical universe, you get to realize that I am me and I am you. So it's run by the
And we're
word,
all together.
we're both and. So I am very
Yeah.
much my own individual spiritual sense. And I'm also connected to every other human being that has ever lived. And it's profoundly awe. I mean, you're in
Yeah.
this state of awe that it's like, really, it makes a difference who I am and what I do and what I think, because it contributes to the that
The
that
movement of the
whatever
universe.
whatever that sense is, our
Yeah.
collective. We have this human. There's one human being, that has all of us in it, and we are all
It's
contributing to that one consciousness, and
it's like the
that's
Hindu idea of like I think of a god. I forgot the name of the god or whatever, laying down and having a dream. We're all that dream. I've
yeah.
always been fascinated by that idea. We got to go to commercial break. We're gonna come back. We'll open up the phone lines. But I'd also, when we first come back, Jamie, if you can hang around, Jamie, I'd like to talk about your near-death experiences with Scott and get his insight because you've talked about it a little bit on the show, and I think it's an incredible experience we should talk about. I know it's difficult, Jamie, but I think it'd be interesting to hear what Scott says about it. But we're gonna go to commercial break. And we'll open up the phone lines for you too, as well. If you've had a near-death experience, if you had a shared-death experience, you better call in. But if you had a near-death experience, please call in, share with us tonight. These are incredible gifts, I think, for people. Shared-death experiences, near-death experiences. You get to see beyond the veil, and know that we're more than just this crude matter. That we are light. We are forever, in our sense, and that's life-changing stuff here. So we will be back after a short commercial break.
He is conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope.
That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHN Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine and soon, paranationmag.com.
I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is the extraordinary travels of a young, alone, and broke psychic in the highly anticipated new book from internationally renowned psychic, medium, medical intuitive, and best-selling author Sherry Dillard. Critics have described I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like as an engrossing memoir, an empowering story of how a broken girl came to accept her psychic gift, a refreshing and fun read. I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is available through Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
Edgar Allan Poe wrote Spirits of the Dead with a pen dipped in warm blood. You will see the ultimate in terror with this important all-star cast. Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda in Edgar Allan Poe's Spirits of the Dead. Only Poe's demented genius could bring to the screen such horror and evil. Spirits of the Dead stars Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda. Directed by three masters of the cinema, Federico Fellini, Louis Malle, and Roger Vadim. Spirits of the Dead is an adventure in terror beyond your wildest nightmares. Spirits of the Dead in color is rated R.
The answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything is $42. Yes, I thought it over quite thoroughly. It is, it's 42. It would have been simpler, of course, to have known what the actual question was.
But it was the question. The ultimate question. Of everything.
That's not a question. Only when you know the question will you know what the answer means.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419, or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest is Dr. Scott Tyler. He's president of the Expanded Awareness Institute. He's the author of 6 best-selling CDs, Into the Light series on guided meditation. We're talking about near-death experiences, of course, but what we're really getting into is a rare occurrence called shared death experiences. Dr. Scott Tyler experienced that himself in a very, life-changing way for him, obviously. He's 35 years going on studying near-death and shared death experiences. And tonight, before Jamie gets off, I want to have her talk about her near-death experience, which is incredible, and get Scott's insight on this. There's so many commonalities between near-death experiences that's to me what's interesting. And then the differences are what's interesting too, but some people they all have their own little unique experience with it. It's all a glimpse into the other side. And the more you hear these experiences, the more you got to know there's nothing to fear but fear itself, right? I mean, there's nothing to fear when there is a continuation of life when you move on. If you've seen your loved ones after they passed on, like I have, that's a message in itself to let you know that. It's hard on this physical world to remember that, and I'm one of those paranoid worrywarts about losing those I love, but you got to know we're all always connected. We're always together, and that's why I love doing these kind of shows. Call in. Let me make sure the phone lines are open for you guys. They are now open. Call into the show. If you've had a near-death experience, especially if you've had a shared death experience, but even a near-death experience, call in, share with us tonight. But let's go ahead and get back to our guest. All right. Now, Jamie, you've shared this on the show a few times. And I would like, always like you to talk about this, and sometimes we don't get to with people that we've had on about near-death experiences, but I think it'd be good to get Scott's insight on this. So go ahead and talk a little bit about what happened while we wait to see if anybody calls in.
Well, I've actually had a couple. The first one, I was a child and almost drowned on a school field trip. And then the one that sticks out the most to me is the one I had in my mid-20s. And it was during an attack. The person was a lot bigger than me. They were a college football player, MMA fighter. So they were able to, sit on me and hold my arms down while they pushed down on my throat and covered my mouth. I didn't have a fight, in me left. So I started kind of feeling my head, losing oxygen and getting tired. And my eyes started to look similar to my vision, like when you're in a chlorinated pool. It didn't burn. Everything just started going cloudy. And I was thinking about my animals, wondering if he was going to hurt them after. I was thinking things like, what is he going to do with me after? Like, where is he going to put me? So like these thoughts are going through my head as I'm feeling myself going. All of a sudden, I had this really bright, like my eyes, it just looked like I was in the brightest sun, not a tunnel. It was just like this light all around me that was like the brightest light I've ever seen. It didn't hurt my eyes, but it was just all around me. And it was kind of warm, and I could feel it like enveloping me. I was like encased by this light, and I just started feeling so relaxed, and it's like euphoric and light and free. And suddenly the fighting and all that didn't matter anymore. It was like I felt okay with whatever was about to happen. At this point, I couldn't see the hanger on the floor anymore or anything. It was almost like when you drift off, like on NyQuil or something. You're kind of conscious, but you're not. Like when you're halfway awake and halfway asleep. but I was okay with going the other way. And I started thinking how it was Mother's Day, and I didn't want forever my mom to remember that on Mother's Day. And, you know, something in my head told me, even though, you know, I want to go, I can't do it today. I can't have this be her day. So at this point, I'm completely unconscious. And because this person was highly intoxicated, he had thought he finished, because this went on 7-8 minutes. He rolled over and went to sleep, and I started to kind of wake up and come out of it. I was starting to feel like the tingling coming back in my legs and my arms and everything. I realized I was still alive, and you know, I'm looking around, I see him sleeping, and you know, I was able to get out. But the euphoric feeling is something that has always stayed with me, and just that feeling of like when it's time to go, it's not scary. It's you just feel like it's okay. And I think when our bodies naturally do shut down, when it's our time and it starts to, you know, do its thing, I believe that we have people on the other side that do wait for us, and they'll start to see them and things. I think our body starts to prepare it and naturally give us these chemicals or whatever gets released, so that when you go, it's not scary.
Right. It seems like a lot of people are, when they go through the near-death experience, are detached. They have a detachment to all the things they were so worried about and concerned in life and all that. They start to have like a detachment from it. Is this common, you think?
Well, yeah, there is this this sense of detachment, and to be even clearer, it's like when our physical body and our non-physical body, they come out of sync with each other. They can actually be in the same location, but there's a difference between them, and then there's a separation. And when that separation happens, it's we lose contact with the physical world, meaning we lose contact with our physical body, and it just becomes the other. And so I would maybe ask you, Jamie, to reframe one of the things that you said, where, you know, like the body releases these chemicals that makes us feel okay. I would posit that maybe, you know, once you were detached from your physical body and you entered into the non-physical world, that's this world that is filled with love and acceptance and joy. There is a couple of spots in your story I just find fascinating, and maybe um, really indicative about why that you wound up staying. And that was, there was a spot there where you said um, you were, as you were losing control, um, you were thinking about your pets, which is another way of saying I was thinking about someone that I loved, or some things that I loved. And so you were building this bridge between the non-physical and the physical world with this arc of love to
And
your
I've
pet.
always felt guilty about that, because I would fight tooth and nail to make sure nothing happened. And I always thought, why would I have been okay with thinking, if once I was gone, what would have happened? Like, how could I even think to let them go through something horrible? So that's something that it's good to know. It seems like a normal reaction.
And you did the same thing with your mother, you know, and saying, oh, it's Mother's Day. You know, she would be devastated if her daughter died on Mother's Day. So again, there's this arc of love between you and your mother, you and your pets. So there's this attachment to the physical world um, that could have saved you. You
She
know,
wanted to be a mother more than anything and went through a lot to have me, and then to have her, me taken like that. I couldn't.
Yep. And you also said something about once you entered into the state, it wasn't scary. It was I'm putting words in
Love.
his mouth. It was love. It was like you were home.
Yeah, it was just very, very comfortable, very, very familiar, comfortable, euphoric. Just the most love, like the most love. And when I meditate, that's the light I envision around me. When I do prayers for people, I envision that same light around them when I'm doing my prayers for them.
Yep. And when you had this experience, um, and you were in the bright light, there was that light that was so bright, but it didn't hurt your non-physical eyes, which is an interesting contrast. It was the brightest light you've ever seen, but it didn't hurt your eyes. Um, was it always bright, or did it change? Did it go dark?
It stayed light like that until I started coming out of it, and then it was just kind of like waking up from a dream.
Got it. Got it.
So I think it might have faded.
So, Jason, one of the things that I don't know if you noticed is when Jamie was talking about how she enters back into that space, she crossed the arms in front of her. It's a really common gesture for those people who have been held by the light. That they do this, they do that
You're
gesture.
embraced by it.
Yep.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, it's a telltale sign for me that you were there. It doesn't often happen. People will automatically go into that crossed arm posture. So it's yeah, it says that you were being held by the love of that place.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie, for sharing that too. And I know you couldn't stay
Yeah,
on too much later, so I wanted to get to that and make sure you got to hear
Yeah,
his insight on it.
it takes a lot of courage, Jamie, to share and bare your heart like that. So you get a smooch from me, okay?
Thank you very much.
It's fascinating when people go through this. One of the elements I've always talked about with people that have near-death experiences. A lot of times people will be. One of the things I find fascinating, first off, is like people in near-death experiences, like right before a traumatic event that's going to be injury, pain, suffering, they're actually pulled from their body before it.
Before it. Yep.
I find that so fascinating. And again, about this, whatever is on the other side always has our back.
Yeah.
That was the feeling I got, that they're not going to let you, nobody really does suffer.
No.
You witness it, but you're detached from it, and they didn't suffer.
One of the things that's kind of fun to do is I'll go on YouTube and like once a day or so, just go on and type in near-death experience and then listen to somebody's experience. And the one I happened to listen to today was just exactly that. It was, two people driving in a car and they lost control and swerved into the other lane, and they had this head-on collision with the other car. And before the cars hit, both of them, there were people in the front seats, both of them had jumped out of their physical bodies and went into the non-physical universe. So they weren't in their bodies when the actual car, made the collision. And that's actually the very first modern day writings about near-death experiences happened in Switzerland. Back in the late 1800s, there was a winter where this really warm weather came in and blew across the mountains, surprisingly in the middle of the winter. what happened was that there were some people climbing the Matterhorn, and they were ice climbing. They're on there and they got their picks and stuff, and all of a sudden this warm air came blasting through, and it didn't allow them to anchor into this ice anymore because it melted in really quickly. And this group of guys fell off the mountain.
Oh, man.
And they were sure that they were going to crash and die at the bottom. And, as they were in the middle of their descent, they left their physical bodies and went and had a near-death experience. But what they didn't know was that as part of this warm weather, there's a whole bunch of snow that had fallen off the mountain and created this pillow of snow at the bottom. Now they were beat up pretty badly, but when they hit the snow, they weren't killed. They didn't land on rocks. They landed on
But just
snow.
because they had the thought that I'm dead, they were
I'm
out.
dead, man, and I really don't want to be here when I land.
It is the anniversary of 9/11. I don't like to talk about 9/11. I have my views about it, and the worst part of that was the videos of the people, jumping to their deaths to escape the fire.
My mentor in the retail business, a guy by the name of Joe Siegel, his daughter worked on the 106th floor of the second tower, and he was talking to his daughter when the second plane hit, and her name was Claren. And I think about that.
You like to think that they didn't feel anything, that they were taken. They were out.
Taken, and I hope it was quick. Yeah.
What I'm saying is that that's the beauty of these experiences that people get to share. It can help loved ones understand that in the end that their loved one didn't suffer.
Yep.
I think it's so important for people to understand. People that lost loved ones in 9/11 would be so grateful for them to know that.
It's a devastating loss, and maybe that little bit can give them comfort.
And it, for you, I mean, one of the things I always ask the people in near death experiences, and I have to ask for you, is now, I mean, I'm a worrywart. Like I never feared death until I had children.
Oh,
the only reason I fear death is because I don't want to abandon them like my father abandoned me. You know what I'm saying? Like my biological father. I don't want to be separated. I don't want them not to have me in their life. I don't care about myself dying as much as I don't want to be separated from them, and I fear them something happening to them. Like I really didn't give a crap. I was ready to watch the world burn. You know what I'm saying? Like a care bag. I could care. Have children, all that changes, and I became a total worrywart and have anxiety, and so that's why it's important to me to hear your guys' your experience and others with near death experiences, because it's a reminder to myself that no matter what, we're always together. For you, has this changed your, like, do you not fear death? I know that's to put it really bluntly, but is that how it's changed you?
I think there's this famous quote that Woody Allen said, which goes, excuse me, Woody, if I get this wrong, but he said something on the order of, I don't really fear death, but I just don't want to be around when it happens.
That's a good one.
Isn't that great? And what our physical body is wired. I mean, is absolutely wired for survival. So it's going to fear death. But what happens as a result of a near-death experience, my non-physical body, my soul, if you will, absolutely doesn't care.
Yeah.
When it's time, it's like, yeah, sure, I'm going home. I'm going to, continue my travels, and I'm going to, thank my physical body for what it did to get me through this physical life. But, it's time to move on, and then on you go. So I've had near-death experiencers tell me that the transition is no more difficult than taking a next step. Or some of them have said it's no more difficult than taking that next breath. It's like one breath, you're physical, the next breath, you're non-physical. And it's that easy, and it's so. So in my family, my grandfather Brett, he was in his mid 80s, and he was close to death. In the last 5 days, he was in a coma. Well, I'm not sure coma is the right word, but he wasn't present.
Right. Yeah.
And in the middle day there on day 3, his caretaker Cheryl came in, and just to check on him to see if by chance he would like a sip of water or something to eat, knowing that she hadn't had any response to him for the prior 2 days. But she walked in, and when she opened the door, his eyes were bright and clear and awake, and he sat up and he said,
yeah.
Cheryl, it is so amazing over there. It is just so wonderful. And with that, his eyes clouded. He laid back down, and that was the last time he was present. So he had already made his transition. It's just his body hadn't caught up yet. And I think about that often in terms of, we aren't relegated to this, whatever concept we have of this body that shudders and shakes, or, like you see in the movies or something.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I
it's not like that.
I think about one thing I've talked about on my show quite often about my grandfather on my biological father's side. We had a estranged relationship because my biological father was a deadbeat. So I didn't get to know him as well as I wanted to. I'd go over there some weekends as a little kid, and then as years went on, I just became a teenager, got separated, didn't see him, and he got dementia or Alzheimer's real bad.
Yep.
And they put him in a nursing home that was just too far away for me, I guess, to drive. And I never got to say goodbye to him. But my aunt would go down there and spend a lot of time with him. It was my uncle's wife, but she loved my grandfather a lot. And she would roll him up to the window every day that she would go visit to just stare out the window, because for the last 2 years of his life, he didn't speak. He lost the ability to speak. He just would sit there pretty much.
He was very compromised, yeah.
The day he died, this is her story, and not everybody in the family believed her because she had issues, but I believe her. The day he died, she told me, she rolled him up to the window, and she had turned to go do something, and she heard him laugh. And she turned and looked at him, and he goes, "Life's a joke," and laughed again. She's like, "Rocky?" And he was just back to his state. And it was only a couple hours later he actually passed on. 2 years, didn't say a word. 2 hours before he dies, he says, "Life's a joke."
Yep.
I've thought about that. That her telling me that has haunted me, in a sense. Like, I might put me in wonder what he meant. I ended up. You do the guided meditation CDs, and I'm really interested in getting to know more about this, because I once did a guided meditation CD. I said, I'll give it a try. It was this new age shop, and the owner recommended this to me. Said, you might be able to connect with your grandfather this way, because I felt like there was a lot unsaid between me and him. Especially the last times I got to see him, his dementia was already on. He was thinking I was my father. He even called me Harley, my father's name. So I felt there was a lot we didn't get to say. Well, me and my father did, yeah.
Yeah.
And I felt guilty that I didn't try harder to get to know my grandfather, be there more, or get to see him, and then I felt really guilty. And I think I was told by this medium friend of mine that he felt guilty, and he's with me, that he didn't get to know me, and that we should connect and try something. So I did this guided meditation, and I swear to you, I was being guided by this meditation. I wish I've been looking forever for what the CD was, and I know I had it, but after not having a CD player anymore, I can't find it. I would love just to see what it is and get another copy of it. It guided me, and I went from this like mental image, doing the guided meditation, to suddenly, it was like the scene in Wizard of Oz when it goes from black and white to color. But the color was light. And I was, next thing I know, and this guided meditation doesn't tell you you're there, you're here. It doesn't tell you, it wasn't doing that. The scene that was presented to me all came out of nowhere. This was not guided. And I don't even know if I was hearing the CD anymore. I'm in this beautiful rolling hill field of glowing flowers, and there's a stream, a narrow stream. And standing across the stream is my grandfather. I mean, I felt the whole thing was real. I could feel him. There was no words, just a knowing communication that he was sorry. You know, I'm sorry. We didn't get to connect more, and I'm sorry things went down the way they did. You know, that we didn't have more of a relationship. And I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking about it because you know, it was powerful. And when I came out of it, I knew what I experienced was real. You know, I did a guided meditation, but this was real. I saw my grandfather there.
Yep.
So I'm really interested to know, you know, with your CDs and what, you know, that people can access it. I believe it because I've had this experience.
Yep. And yours contains an element that, unless you know what you're looking for, that cements that this thing is really that you were there, and that is the stream. Because we know that people who've had near-death experiences, they'll come up to some kind of a border. It could be a stream, a window, a door.
He's across the stream from me. Like, we're talking across the stream.
Yep. And
with our minds.
And what that's about is that if you were to cross that stream, you are now in the space where he is. And in the esoteric terms, when people are given a choice, do you want to stay in the non-physical or come back to the physical? If you want to stay in the non-physical, you cross the stream. You go walk through the door. You go through the window. You know, there's some sort of boundary that demarcates the physical versus the non-physical, and you have to take that step. So the stream is profoundly important in that, and the fact that it's water more so, because that's all about the unconscious. And think of the river Styx, you know. You know, in old Roman mythology. You know, the difference between the physical and the non-physical is this river Styx, and you are ferried over by the oarsman, which I can't remember his name.
Oh, jeez. Now you're going to make me, it's going to be the tip of my tongue.
Yep.
And, but anyways, go ahead. It's not important.
Yeah, so, yes, it's really important. And with people who are interested in, I'll get people coming up like at the International Association for Near-Death Studies, their conference was just this last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Listeners, go. The next one's in Arlington, Virginia, over Labor Day. It's unbelievably fun. You spend the whole 3-4 days talking about death, and you never had such a good time.
I would love it. Actually, I would love it. I would love to do something like that.
Because do a show from there. I'll help you out. I'm typically the MC of those conferences.
If you saw my setup, you'd be like, "Yeah, no, you can't do that." Yeah. It's non-mobile.
But, you know what it's about is that people will come up and say, you know, because about half the people who attend those go to the conference have never had a near-death experience. They're just really interested, and they'll say something like, "Boy, I really wish I could have that experience."
Without the trauma.
Yeah, exactly. And you say, no, you don't. You do not want a near-death experience because that involves such physical trauma that your body dies, and it takes you years to recover from all of
And don't do the flatliners thing.
No, oh God.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. But we now know that the way to do that is using binaural beat technology. That can put you into the same vibratory state as where your grandpa is. And because the non-physical universe is guided by vibration. And if you're interested in, say, exploring the tunnel, Well, there's a vibration for that. If you're interested in getting to know your escort that takes you through the tunnel, well, there's a vibration for that. There's a vibration for, once you get into the light and you're at the reunion with your dead relatives and friends, that exists on one vibratory level. And then where your life review happens, that's another vibratory level. And there's another one where, that area of life between lives. Well, you can go there very deliberately and learn the tools of navigation by using binaural beat technology. And it really makes a difference. And it's easy. You can learn it quickly. You just need to have now the intention because, oh yeah, I remember now that what those people would tell me is they'd say, we come to these conferences and we've read all these books and, I'm just tired of reading about other people's experience. I want to do this. I want to do this. And so that's where I point them is to guided meditations because they can have the same effect that happened with you, Jason. I mean, it's just all of a sudden you're there and you really are talking to Grandpa, and you can hear.
I believe it.
You can hear that stream burble, and you could, reach down.
It was like I said, it went from like, okay, this is my mind. I'm following the guided meditation to, like I said, it was just remind me of the scene in Wizard of Oz when it just goes from black and white to color, and it's just like, whoa, where this is happening. This is really happening.
Yep,
and
it's true. That's how it works.
Do you have a link that I could post out for people?
Yeah, I didn't have a.
So for me,
shoot. Yeah, go ahead.
It's neardeathmeditations.com. And there's all these guided meditations that I do to take people to these various things I just talked about.
Thank you.
Neardeathmeditations.com. And so,
I'm not getting any callers. I want to stipulate that if you haven't had a near-death experience, but you want to call in and ask a question, you can do that just as well, people. You can call in and ask a question. You don't have to just have a near-death experience to call in. You can call in without that. I also wonder, too, I mean, if you've ever explored... I know people... I've had some very powerful, I would say dreams. They're dreams. But I call them visions. I've seen the future in my dreams. I've seen this come true. I've seen my past lives. I know they were my past lives. They were I was physically a little black girl slave being beaten to death. I was a Buddhist monk who was shot. I've experienced that so physically and emotionally that I know I was that person. It's the weirdest experience. And I would like to ask you a little bit about past lives, but my point is that sometimes people have these experiences through a sleep state or dream state. I've had a couple really. One, the aunt that I talked about, that was there with my grandfather, her and my uncle, who was my grandfather's son, were drug addicts, had a lot of problems. And he died, my uncle died of a drug overdose, and then she died in a horrible car wreck, alcohol, driving, so awful. Bad relationship with them, too. Like, very emotional, like a lot of unsaid, and a lot of regret, and a lot of, I had, bad feelings towards my aunt and uncle. Then, right after she passed away, I had this dream. I don't know how to describe it, where my uncle came and got me, and he brought me to this house. And my aunt was there. My grandpa was there. My grandmother that I never met, died before I was born. I believe she was there. And my step-grandmother. And they were telling me, you're part of this family too, And I felt that love, like just such love that I never experienced with that side of the family. I know my uncle loved me. I knew he did, but I had a lot of angst, regret because of his drug addiction and how his family was affected. And it was like all that was just understood, and I let go of a lot of it after that dream. It's like he reached out to me, and Melanie too, my aunt, to say their goodbye and sorry. But we love you, and you were a part of this family too. Because when I go to the funerals, I went to the funeral for my uncle, and I went to the funeral for my aunt. I always felt like I'm the outsider here. Nobody knows me. Because my dad was a jerk and didn't give a crap and took off. and I felt like he reached out for me. You ever looked into people's dreams of connecting with loved ones on the other side?
Yeah. So the research says pretty clearly that about 60% of the population, 60, have after death communication with a loved one. And very often that occurs at night when we sleep. And like you, I can call it a dream, but it has a different quality than a dream does.
Yeah.
It's, you're really there, you're present.
You know what the other thing was? Is I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Maybe
so
because
you
that's
don't-
how I
you
always
don't have all
experienced
of
them.
the cultural baggage that goes with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
just happened.
You talk about that. I feel very lucky in life to had all the weird, crazy experiences. I feel like so many people haven't. One of the ones was my grandmother when she passed. That's the one person I saw her not long before she passed away. I was a bit haunted by, she had Alzheimer's, which, like my grandfather on my father's side,
Tough way to go.
Yeah, it is, and it was really tough on everybody in the family, especially me and my mother, who were really close to my grandmother. And I was haunted for a couple weeks by her final breaths. Like, I wasn't there for her final moments, but I was close to it. Just the gasping, like the body's just barely hanging on to breathe on its own. I was haunted by that. I would have nightmares of her in my parents' house, breathing like that, or being in my parents' house and being confused. And that was me and my mom's worry, like, are they confused after they die? Well, I think she answered that for me right afterwards. I still had the nightmares even after this experience of that, but I think she was trying to keep me from having that, because the day of her wake, I work retail. I was working at my store, and I was in the bathroom steaming some clothes, and the mirror in the bathroom went completely black. Like, stopped. It was like a little small candlelight started to come in the center of the mirror, and in it grew out into my grandmother's face. And I saw her, and I broke down, and I went out to the floor because I was going to be leaving soon anyways, and I just said, I need a minute. And before I could say that, two of the associates on my floor were like, oh my God. They all knew I do in the weird paranormal stuff. They're like, Jason, something really weird happened. Like, and the one kid that's telling me that really experienced this was a total skeptic to me on paranormal stuff. So it was really crazy. It was coming from him. It's like, I don't know what it was. The doors closed, but there was this huge rush of wind through the store, and it went by me, and I had like this tingly sensation as it went through me, like it's the ghost, because we would joke about the ghost of the store, and I'm like, I can't talk right now, because it happened right when I was in the bathroom and when my grandmother appeared to me to let me know she was all right. My mom had her own personal experience that way too. And my favorite stories, people tell me all kinds of ghost, haunted, paranormal, UFO, Bigfoot stories doing the show, being a paranormal investigator, but my favorite stories are those from individuals, is the afterlife communications from a loved one that comes across. They're there for you to let you know, I'm all right. Don't worry about me.
So for your listeners, if it doesn't happen in a corporeal sense, like you saw your grandmother, some people see, they're right there. You can,
yeah, physically right there in front of them.
Right here. Or, a a vision state where it's just realer than real sometimes. That doesn't happen to everybody. But what happens more often is that the essence of that person, your grandmother, will take and bend nature. So if your grandmother's favorite bird was a cardinal,
you're hitting right on the head for my wife's grandmother on that one.
Okay, so all of a
experience.
sudden you're sitting there having breakfast and you're thinking about Grandma Ann, and there's a cardinal sitting on the windowsill pecking against the glass, and you're going, "Wow, that's so cool." And it happens with, say, like dragonflies or hummingbirds, or
It's funny you said cardinal, because it's exactly what happened with my wife's grandmother, who I love to death, Mimi. They had a theme between them, which was cardinals, because my wife would tell her mom and her grandma that they're red jays. The red jays.
They're
They're
red
like, look,
jays.
it's card. So her grandmother, so they'd call it red jays, and they buy. Her grandmother would buy her red jay stuffed animals. And, they call them the red jay.
I love it.
Well, the morning my wife got the call that her grandmother had passed away, we walked into the kitchen, and she looks out the window, and right there, sitting right on the thing, there's one bird, and it's the red jay, the cardinal, sitting right out there, looking right through the window at us.
It happens all the time.
And my dad's is the hummingbirds all the time.
Yep. Hummingbirds.
Yeah.
And then less so, but still every once in a while, electrical stuff. Is it?
Oh yeah.
There, lights that flicker on and off, or just something strange that happens over a television or a phone, or
Well, we do live spirit box communication on this show, and you can skeptics can criticize that thoroughly, rightfully so, But we've had audio come through that didn't come out of the spirit box, came right through the show audio for a caller.
Yep.
And it was exactly their nickname and message to each other: peanut butter and jelly. It was.
I love that.
I heard it more than once. Yeah. That was her
Peanut
nickname. One was peanut butter and one was jelly. And it said it more than once. She's like, "Can you say my name?" It was Rhodey. I love you, Rhodey. My paranormal mama. She was trying to get her friend to come across to the spirit box. But the reason we knew it wasn't the spirit box, it had no echo on it. The spirit box has an echo and reverb. This was dry audio, came right through. And and she said it sounded like her. It's peanut butter and jelly. And it said it again, peanut butter and jelly, to get our attention. I definitely think spirits can manipulate electronics for sure.
So have you had Joshua on from the Hope Spirit Box?
Yeah, we've had him on. We've had Steve Huff. We've done Keith Weldon. We've done a lot of different people with Spirit Box. What we do, because Steve and Josh like to do a lot of celebrity stuff. I don't do that. I don't care about that. I purposely started this show to have open phone lines so people could call in and connect with the box or with what we're using, whatever device we're using, and see if they get a response. That's what I care about. And one of the big purposes of me starting to do this show 7 years ago was to see if we could do that, and the results have been amazing.
So what I think we got to tell people then is to start working retail, right?
Yeah. No.
I was 20 years in the department store business. So, and when my shared death experience happened, I was a buyer of junior clothing at the time, but I'd spent an awful lot of time on the sales floor steaming clothes. So,
steaming clothes.
I get it.
But,
what's kind of cool about the dreams, how they come back in dreams to let us know that they're okay. And sometimes it can take, days or years, but it always ends up happening. My dad comes by a lot. My mom and I actually happened to have almost the same exact visitation dream within about 4 or 5 days of each other. I happened to have brought it up to her, and she gets white and says, "Oh my gosh." And there were just a few details that were slightly different, but the overall everything else was like the same exact dream. She wasn't in mine, I wasn't in hers. It was just me and my dad, and her and my dad, but the whole undertone, the whole meaning of it was the same.
Yeah,
and he talks with his eyes a lot.
Yeah, that reminds me so much, Jamie, of what happened with Mary Fran's sister and me. We had the exact same experience.
Yeah.
We didn't see each other, and it was, it's profoundly comforting. I think that's the message out of it. That what we're experiencing is real, and they're just fine. They're doing just fine. In fact, that's one of the messages that has now come out lately. The difference between near-death experiences and shared death experiences. William Peters' research shows that of the 800 people that had shared death experiences, every single one of them, 100%, went to a benevolent afterlife. Every single one. So there are people that have what's known in the trade as less than positive.
I was going to ask you. That was a question I want to ask tonight. Is about those experiences. Yes.
Yeah, those they happen in that near-death scenario, but they do not happen when it's for real. When you are making your final transition and you happen to have a witness, like I did with Nolan,
a shared death experience.
In a shared death experience, they go to a benevolent afterlife. There's none of this other stuff. The less than positive experience seems to be an artifact of an NDE, and in particular, I've interviewed enough people to know that in the vast majority of the cases, that hellish experience or less than positive experience was really a wake-up call. It was, their guides, the universe, whatever, taking a 2x4 and whacking them alongside the head and saying, listen, jerk, we have been trying to tell you for years that you're living a life that's not going to get you where you want to go. So listen up and
them
pay attention.
Right, because some of these are scary. I remember Art Bell. I'm a big Art Bell fan. Having, I think it was Sarah was the name of the interview. He interviewed this one lady. She was like, she didn't seem like she did anything bad in life, but I think she was on a bicycle and got hit by a car. I can't remember. It's many years ago.
Yep.
And she had like the whole hellish, like people tortured in hell experience, and came out of that. And I'm like, why? One of the things that, like, with the 800 people for the shared death experience all being benevolent when they went there.
Yep.
I know it's probably hard to judge this, but was there anybody in those 800 people that you would think, well, that person probably should have a bad experience? They had did things, or, I'm not trying to judge people. I don't believe in that, but you know what I'm saying? Like, they weren't a great person.
Yep. And we know that doesn't make a difference, that you are always welcome back into the love of the universe. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
I feel you on that. Science has been killing me.
That you are always, you can never be separated from the love of God, because we are made up of the same stuff. And so it's impossible for us to be separated from that love. And that's what you realize in a near-death or a shared death experience. And that temporary separation that happens is really a wake-up call. Or the second thing that happens, if it's not a 2x4 alongside the head, there's an author, Nancy Evans Bush, who writes about hellish near-death experiences. And she posits that you're familiar with Joseph Campbell and
the Hero's Journey. Yeah.
In the Hero's Journey, there's a spot where you have to overcome the big ugly monster, and it takes all different kinds of forms. But at some point, you're confronted with this big obstacle that creates fear, whatever, and it's your job to figure out a way to go around them, move, whatever. And that hellish part of the near-death experience is just that. It's a chance for the soul to grow by figuring out what it is that is causing fear. There's a great scene in the second Harry Potter movie, which I can't remember the name of now. But something, anyway, so the scene is that the three of them, Harry, Hermione, and Ron, open up this door, and there's a 3-headed dog sitting on a trapdoor.
Yeah.
And this 3-headed dog is drooling, and it's barking, and it's blah, 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 and it's their job to get down underneath into the trapdoor, so they can eventually play this game of chess, and then that they win. But what they did was something that we in the meditation world, so if you encounter something that startles you or surprises you, when you're in a meditation, the key is having the sense of self, the presence enough to step back and to go, oh, big, scary, ugly dog, why are you here? What is it you're trying to tell me? And virtually every time that drooling monster will transform itself into another shape and say, thank you for paying attention. This is what you need to know. And in this case, you know, in the Harry Potter film, they step back and Hermione goes, oh, it's music and
Chamber of Secrets, I think it was, right?
Very
Something
good.
like
You get a star for that. But that's the same thing. It's like saying if we have this really nasty thing that happens to us in a near-death experience, it's a growth experience to be able to step back and say, I am not the fear. I am me, and I am well and loved and always connected to the love of the universe. This is something that is trying to teach me a lesson. There's something in here for me to learn. What is it? And you confront the fear by saying, what is it that you're trying to teach me? And it transforms itself. And that's I believe, and so is Nancy Evans Bush, that is one of the reasons people will have these experiences, is that it's designed to give them a growth. And a very small percentage of them, I still don't know. I don't know. I still don't know why people have those experiences.
Maybe it's expectation. One of the things I loved about the movie What Dreams May Come is in that Robin Williams' wife commits suicide and he goes to hell to save her. And we're like, oh, there's a hell, you know, like, but really it's not a hell. It's a hell of their making. It's an illusion. It's a trick. They've trapped themselves in there in a sense, and he has to wake her up to that to get her out. I always thought that was a beautiful concept.
Yeah, and it's very much the case when people make their final transition. They'll go through a tunnel. Will wind up in a pasture and have a life review under a tent or whatever. And
or meet Jesus or Buddha
whatever. And it's all about what are the metaphors that you have in your head for a certain experience. Bruce Grayson, who's he's a giant in the field of near-death experiences. He's written a zillion books on it. We were having a conversation the other day, and he was telling me, he says, Scott, you know, I think everybody has the same experience when they leave their physical body and enter into the non-physical world. It's just that each of us have different metaphors stored in our head so that in order for us to make sense of it, in order for us to interpret the experience, we bring to it those kinds of images, you know. So
what dreams may come, you paint your own canvas.
Yep. Exactly.
Experiences. We got to go to the last commercial break. Guys, you want to call in? Like I said, you don't have to have a near-death experience. You can call in without it if you got a question for our guest, but we're going to go to our last commercial break. Phone lines will be back open when we come back with our guest, Dr. Scott Tyler. We're talking about near-death experiences, but also mainly about the rare phenomenon of shared death experiences tonight when we come back from the short commercial break.
Call me.
Intercepted transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated. I don't want to hear it.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDeath.net.
This is an APAC studio presentation.
Hi, I'm Barry, owner-operator of Barry's Barometer Barn. Lately, I bet you've been lying awake at night asking yourself, how many barometers do I really need? Well, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we think you need more than one. Otherwise, we're gonna go out of business. Remember, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we don't know the meaning of high-pressure sales. Come on, folks, buy another barometer. I'm trying to put my kids through college, I've got a family to support, and a secret mistress who isn't cheap.
Visit Barry's Barometer Barn, 000 Storm Drive. Come on, folks, buy a barometer. I'm Barry's older brother, Larry, and every time one of you people walk past the store without coming in, Barry beats me.
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
When Alex Gardner is asleep, he has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it, the scientists want it, but to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all, but he cannot resist entering the dreamscape. Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now. Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the dreamscape.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do voices from beyond the cold case files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. Time to die.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest is Dr. Scott Taylor. He is president of the Expanded Awareness Institute. He has 6 best-selling CDs, Into the Light series on guided meditations, using like binaural beats to get you in the state. So, apparently, get you in the state of going to the other side, experiencing what Scott experienced himself in a shared death experience. This is the first time in a long time I have had no callers tonight. Hopefully, you want to call in. You got about a half an hour left to do it. Like I said, you got a question for a guest or you want to share your own experiences, please do. Even if it's just a dream like I shared tonight, some of these things are going to be just as powerful. We got a lot more to get to and a little time left to do it. So let's go ahead and get back to our guest. All right. Thank you for staying with us, Scott. Yeah, surprised I haven't had any phone calls tonight, but I think it's also partly because people are really in tune to hearing your experience tonight and the subject matter. And it's hard for people probably to talk about it. The phone lines are open, though, guys. You can call in now. It's off of Do Not Disturb. You can call in if you want.
Hey,
got a little bit of time left.
Yeah, Jamie, are you still with us?
She might not be back yet.
Okay.
When she has the camera off.
So
but,
one of the things
ahead.
I'd like to talk about tonight that happens to be a particular expertise of mine is that during near-death experiences, people encounter 3 different kinds of light. Have you had anybody talk about that before?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So it goes
I
like
don't
this.
think
When you see experiences on television or in the movies, they'll very often feature the white light at the end of the tunnel. We were talking about Harry Potter in the last, part 2 of the
Correction, it was the first movie for the dogs by somebody in the chat room corrected us. Chamber Sinkers was the second book, but it's the first one.
Oh,
with the dog.
Thank you, wonderful listener.
Debbie. It was Debbie.
Debbie, way to go.
Correct us. Harry Potter fan.
You get an extra star for that one, Debbie.
Yep.
So in the very last film, he has this duel with he who shall not be named, and he dies and goes up into the non-physical universe, and he meets
Dumbledore.
Thank you. And he has a very typical near-death experience. So he's talking to someone who has died. He learns some things that he could never know otherwise, and then is sent back into the physical world where he can then revive and have the final encounter with, the evil one. And that is very much a white light experience.
Yeah.
Well, there's also a black light experience. And that is, instead of a white light at the end of the tunnel, people find themselves in a place that they'll describe as the void. It's very black and maybe some purple tinges to it. But it's the place of, if you're an Old Testament fan, Genesis 2 talks about before there was form, before there was anything material, there was the void.
The word.
And it's the place where it's like unmanifested potential, where things exist before form and are just waiting to come into physical matter reality. Anyway, that's a place that people will visit on occasion, and it is incredibly healing. It is a place of profound acceptance and love. And this is one of the reasons I was so interested in Jamie's response, because people who talk about the black light will almost universally cross their arms in front of them and kind of do this rocking motion, and they'll talk about how loved and accepted they are, and they'll use words that to the effect of, this is the womb of God. This is where things are created from. So it's a very different experience than what you read about with a white light experience.
Right.
The last one is a clear light experience. And I had to smile because one of my favorite explanations of this comes out of the movie What Dreams May Come.
I love that movie. Yep.
And Robin Williams finds himself in this atmosphere, in this environment that is all paint, because remember, that's what his wife loved to do. And in it, there are colors that are very unusual, and all of the colors emit their own light. And that's what happens with people who've had a near death experience in the clear light, is that all of a sudden they realize that the environment that they are in, that things start to exude their own light. And
that's what it was like from my experience of seeing my grandfather where I was. That's what it was like. Everything had a glow.
Yeah.
I like Christmas. I always thought maybe that's why I like Christmas lights. It reminded me of Christmas lights, the red, blue, green glow that leaves in the room is what it reminded me of.
And that's what actually happened to me when I was in the hospital room with Nolan. Is like all of a sudden everything started to exude its own light, and I found myself merged with this light that is where you begin to realize that you are made up of this same light. Everything is made up of this light that is the love of the universe. So that's the third kind. Now back to Jamie, for instance. This is one of the things I was struck by was about this bright light and how, hi, Jamie, you're back. By how she was engulfed and immersed in this white light. Well, there are people who've been in this white light and they enter in it and it's really bright. It doesn't hurt their eyes. And they had the presence of mind to look around behind them to see if there was a shadow.
Yeah.
And there wasn't. And the point was that they had entered into and became part of the light. They weren't apart from it, so there could be no shadow. They were the light. And I find that really comforting. And it's kind of a signature for me when, Jamie, when you described it and saying, I was immersed. I think, what did you say? Encased is the word you use. I wrote it down.
Mm-hmm.
It was so apt. I was encased in the love that was the light that came out of that. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jamie.
Jamie, do you remember anything about your first near-death experience when you were a kid?
Not too much. Before we were on a outing, and at the time, even though I lived by the beach, I hadn't had formal training swimming yet. I was like 5, and they were pressuring us to jump off a diving board that I told them I couldn't do because I couldn't swim. We didn't have water wings or nothing. It was 70s. They kept telling me to jump off the diving board and saying, see how the other kids are doing it? Just go jump. I knew I shouldn't. Didn't want to. The people watching, I felt pressured to do it. I jumped and I went under. Trying to come up, the kids thought I was splashing them, so they were splashing me back and pushing my head back under the water. So I started feeling myself taking on the water, and it was kind of the same concept in some ways. It was more the water was making me go to another place in my head, and the light was, at the top of the pool. I just kept seeing light at the top of the pool, and I was just reaching for that and kept feeling myself doing this. And then I don't remember anything else but them then having me on the side of the pool doing CPR.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, because there'll be yeah. So I've heard that happen before, and that light that's at the top of the pool sometimes has a special quality to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the light, and you're reaching for the light as well as the sunlight. So
It almost looked like a portal. It was kind of like a portal, like not a portal, but that type of light above me. It wasn't the sun or the reflection, like the whole top of the pool. It was just like that's where I was trying to reach to go.
yep, yep. Okay, you win. You get a double header there.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I mean, everybody get to, like Jamie, to have places and forums like, that's why I do the show where they can share these experiences. Because you get, like I said before, you have the shared death experience and near death experience. There's probably a ton of people out there that not told anybody. They've kept it to themselves, and you feel like the other side is as much of it is a veil that we always ask the question: Are we, do we just are nothing when we die, or is there an afterlife? It's like the ultimate question. The answer is 42. No.
Yeah.
But it feels like they are trying to let us know, like that this is something that is trying to be corrected in our society, to let us know that there is another world, another life. There's more to us than this.
Yeah, and that our concept of us as mere mortal, it's just a human being, and then when we die, it's lights out, toes up, or nothing after that. I think that has been profoundly changed, and now that the science around near-death experiences is okay. This is Scott Taylor's opinion. I think it's pretty much settled. The people are in that. They actually do the research in that would say, "Oh, Scott, there's still stuff we don't know yet." But no, what it was back in 2001 when Pim Van Lommel wrote his book "Consciousness Beyond Life." He forever put a stake in the idea that the consciousness arises from the brain. That our thoughts are the result of our gray matter that's up here. That's just simply not true. Our consciousness resides within the non-physical body, which temporarily happens to be within this very wonderful physical body we have with all of its sensations. But once this physical body dies, we just leave, and our consciousness goes into the non-physical world. And he did a very elegant study that just absolutely proved it to me anyway, and the study's been replicated a couple of times since then. So it's what I now believe to be true is that the brain, instead of being the creator of consciousness, is a filter of consciousness. In fact, that when we are in our non-physical body, we have access to all the information that's ever been created in the universe, because everything is connected. It's part of the unity universe, it's often called.
Well, you had a phone call, or say so. So I just want to let you know so we can get to the phone call.
So the quick answer is that when we get done, it acts as a filter, because if we're living here in the physical world, we can't have all that information available to us.
I've always wondered that.
We couldn't manage what it takes to survive here in the physical, with the tigers in the trees and the snakes and all that. We got to pay attention, man. And so our brain is the filter. It shuts down a bunch of information that we don't need in order to exist in the physical universe. And that's what we're learning to do now, is to take some of those filters and open them back up again so that we have access to those states. So thank you, caller. I'm ready.
Yep, here we go. Before we run out of time, we got, it looks like Connie on the phone. Is this Connie? Is what it says on the ID.
This is Blue Sky from the chat room.
Oh, Blue Sky. Hey, Blue Sky.
Hello. Hi there. This one I can talk about without crying because I've talked about it so much. Anyway, it has to do with my grandmother, who I told my mother at a very young age, I feel I have two guardian angels. And I remember the look she gave me, very different. Anyway, I said, it's my grandma Alice, who I never met, and my brother who died at 2 years old, who I didn't know. I was only 5 months old. Anyway, there was rumors that she had been murdered. And anyway, a lot of rumors. Anyway, one night I had a dream, but it wasn't a dream. And I know what I know, And we were face to face, and we're talking. And I said, "You're my grandmother Alice." She said, "Yes, I am." But I remember one side of her face was all like clouded. I couldn't see it. And I remember putting my head from side to side, trying to see her complete face. Couldn't see it. Anyway, trying to shorten this.
Yeah.
Anyway, the next morning I was on a mission. And I mean, I was on a mission. I'm going to find out what happened to our grandmother. Told my sisters, told my brothers. Took me almost 2 years because we thought maybe she was part of the Torso murders here in Cleveland. Anyway, that's another story.
Yeah.
Anyway, when I got the police report and the autopsy, all of it, I didn't know she had been slashed by her second husband, not my biological grandfather.
Right.
Slashed from her ear down to her mouth. Hence, I put two and two together. That's why her face was clouded. Anyway, we got a lot of answers.
Wow.
That it wasn't, and I never felt it was a black man who killed her. That was the rumor from the cousins, my uncle's children, their mother, my mother and my brother. There was only two of them. His children, that it was a black man who killed. I said, "Are we sure about that? Did we ever find any newspaper? Or did we find anything?" Anyway, I just wanted to tell that one little story. That one I felt I could do without crying. There's so many. But anyway, we are all connected, and we humans have got to figure it out. No one's going to do it for us. We may get some help, I hope and I pray, but we got to have a little more understanding, a little more love, a little more something for our species, because we are divided on the one hand, but on the other hand, I feel we are so together, and there's going to be a change for the good or the bad, and I'm praying for the good, that we just kind of come together and know that somehow we are all connected.
100%.
And if we ever find out what this thing is, because I believe the UFO question and the paranormal question are not so far separated.
Nope.
Because I'm like, wait a minute, now I've had paranormal experiences and I've had UFO experiences.
Me too.
And not alone with the group. Hell, in 1980, the summer, we seen one hovering right over the trees. We knew. It was a group of us. We know to this day. Let them all talk about what they want. We know what we experienced. We know it wasn't this technology, our technology. At least that's what we all felt.
Yeah.
And we all said it almost the same kind. Do you feel like you're being scanned? Now, that was an odd thing. We just didn't use that word, scanned, our little group. But that's what we all said. Like, we're looking at them, and whoever they are, they're looking at us. So I don't know. All I know is I pray for our species, because I believe throughout every fiber of my being we are worth saving, because we are more than what we think we are. That's just my personal opinion. Sorry for crying.
It's all right, Blue. Thank you for calling in. You got to do it again, too. You need to call into the show
so
again and
much,
share
I'm
more of
loving
those
your
stories.
show.
Thank
Yes,
you,
I'm
Blue.
loving your show, and I'm going to tune in more often. Thank you.
All right. Have a great night, Blue. That was an
Bye-bye.
awesome call. Thank you.
Thank you, and you too. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you, Blue Sky. That was really, really touching, and I'm with you on that. That we know that we're connected. All of us are connected to each other. Each human being is part of a really amazing, wonderful whole, and there's so much research about people who've had a near-death experience, and when they're in the experience, they find out things that they couldn't possibly have known in the physical world, from, where the will is hidden to,
true.
And to what happens a lot is, they'll enter into the physical life and they'll meet their older brother, but they never had an older brother. Well, it turns out it was a miscarriage. And Mom and Dad were so
I got a story on
traumatized
that
by it,
too.
they never talked about it. And there's just case after case after case that helps validate. There's the word. It helps validate the
experience,
authenticity of the experience.
Yeah.
So Blue Sky, you're dead on, and I'll add my juju to your prayers, and let's hope for the rest of us that our species can figure out a way to start loving each other instead of fearing each other. Yeah.
I had that when I was a little kid. I used to, a really short, quick story. I used to talk to my mom, be like, "Who are you talking to?" It would be my imaginary friend, right? I'd say,
Yep.
"Little girl." And I remember talking to a little girl in a white dress, dark hair, inside of our apartment. And years later, my mom like, there was no little girl that ever played inside our apartment. I was like, little girl, and there was a little boy I played with too. She goes, there was a little boy that lived upstairs. I'm like, yeah, he didn't play inside the apartment though, right? She's like, no, but the little girl did. She's like, there was no little girl. And my mom went to the psychic, and the psychic had no idea about any of this. Shouldn't know anything about this. My mom told no one. Says, "Oh, the little girl your son talks to is your daughter you miscarried."
Oh, isn't that lovely?
See, I this life, like so much to this, and we're running out of time. But like, I saw my youngest son Liam, who's 6 now, before he was born, years before he was born. Translucent boy walked through my parents' living room, smiled at me, and I felt the same overwhelming love feeling I felt when I had another experience that I call God or whatever. And when the day he was born and I saw him smile, I knew that boy I saw in my parents' living room. It was right before I was getting ready to move out to live with my wife. That was him. And he told my wife he chose us.
Yeah.
Another movie plug here is, did you ever see The Discovery of Robert Redford on Netflix?
I'm sorry, say that title again?
The Discovery.
The Discovery. Nope, don't know that one.
You should see that one.
All right. What's that about?
I'm not going to say it's not. It's hard for me. It's one of those movies, a debate that I love things about it and hate things about it. Basically, Robert Redford plays a scientist who proves without a doubt that there is an afterlife.
Yeah.
He's able to record it and show it, basically, that there is an afterlife. So it proves to the world there's an afterlife. This is the part I hate, is that because he proves it, everybody starts committing suicide. There's like cults that are committing suicide. That's the part I hate about the movie and concept. And I am going to spoil it for you because I kind of can't help it because I really wanted your thoughts on this. I am spoiling it for you. Shoot, should I do this? Because it's a love or hate relationship with this movie. It's up to you. Do you want me to spoil it for you? Because it's important, kind of this aspect of what happens after you.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm going to spoil it. I'm sorry. I apologize in advance. But you still give the movie a shot. It left me with a lot of love and hate for the movie. But this is the part I love. Is one of the main characters finally has it. He's the son of Robert Redford in the movie and recreates the experiment and kills himself, right? And what he finds out, and the reason he does this is he's proven what he's finding out is that because they can record people's deaths, you can see what they see when they go to the other side.
Right.
Is that these people are just shifting a timeline.
Oh.
He ends up shifting to a moment in time he regrets or he wants to change. And he changes it and goes on to a new timeline. So it's like nobody ever really dies. They just continue on to a different parallel version of themselves and change something that they did in that life that they wanted to change. I love that part of the movie. The whole everybody committing suicide I thought was stupid.
Yeah, that part is absolutely not true. When people come back from their near-death experiences and you ask them, "Well, do you want to commit suicide?" They look at you like you're nuts.
Well, at the same time too. But at the same time, that the people just giving the proof that there's an afterlife decide I'm going to go just kill myself now. That part was that people that didn't even experience it were going to go do it. I thought it was stupid. But the concept that that the afterlife, that you are eternal, you just keep living on in your experience and learning new, like you continue on, I thought was beautiful. It's like I have a love-hate relationship with that movie.
And I've been in a couple times in my life, I've known people who have the ability to shift timelines. Like
we've had guests
right
on
now
talking
in our
about
current
this.
life, there's a lovely woman. You can find her on TikTok, Stephanie Fallerini, who has that ability. You know, she can go into a meditative state and then shift over into another timeline where she didn't break up with her boyfriend but married the boyfriend. You know, and so there's a whole nother life that way, and it's fascinating to contemplate that. You know, that we have, well, it'd be infinite timelines that we're able to access. Yeah. It's a skill that I haven't figured out how to do yet, but I'm working on it.
Let's say there's so many concepts of what, death, and you get into reincarnations, like what dreams may come. They had a Western version and an Eastern version. The Western version, they're all in heaven, it's fine, end. Eastern version, they have to deal with the karma in their life, and they choose, the wife and Robin Williams choose to be reborn, and they show them get reborn and meeting each other again and all this, and they have to go through this. It was funny that they had to make two different endings for the two different sides of the world, and we're running out of time. I'd love to have gotten the conversation with you about reincarnation too, what your thoughts were on that.
Oh, I can go for a whole hour just on that one.
I know. We got to have you back on again. And all right. So one more time, what's your website?
NearDeathMeditations.com. And my podcast is called The Afterlife Files. And the best place, just go to YouTube and type that in.
Yeah.
You can go see it.
And I want to get my hands on the CDs. I'd like to, I've always taught, I've been doing a little more meditation, getting back into it, not as much as I need to, but I've been trying to get back into meditation. I'd love to try to experience guided meditation again after my experience I had. I'd like to do it again. So I'm really interested in trying out the binaural beats.
Yeah,
so I definitely want to check that out.
Yeah, the CDs, they're right behind my head here. There, you can get descriptions about what's on each one at NearDeathMeditations.com. So
all right,
just go there.
Gotta check
all
that
the
out.
stuff is there.
Well, thank you, Scott. I honestly, really, so much more I want to talk to you about. Got to get you on. Go watch the movie Discovery, even though I spoiled it for you.
No. It'll be a fun trip. Thank you.
Yeah, I would love to know your thoughts on that.
We're good to go.
All right. Well, that's it for the show, guys.
Lovely.
Have a great night.
Jason, Jamie.
And Jamie, thank you, too, for sharing tonight with your experience. I know it's not always easy to share these experiences, and thank you again for doing that. But we got to go. We're out of time. I got to get up and get kids to school in the morning, so that's all I got. Till next Sunday, we'll actually have a returning guest next Sunday. Like, we need to have Scott return. You got to return. We got to get you back on. Dr. Kimberly McGeorge was an excellent guest. We're going to have her back on next Sunday, getting into all things metaphysical, psychic, paranormal phenomenon, all that good stuff she talks about. Same bad time, same bad channel, 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Central, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific time. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Make sure you follow, subscribe, tell your friends. Keep sharing the show. Thank you to everybody who shares out the show. Thank you to those who do donate to the show, either on YouTube Super Chat or on Patreon. You can find me at Jason Bland Paranormal Soup, $2 a month, $5 a month. It all helps pay the bills for this show. Thanks again, guys. Have a great night. See you next week.